on, boy. Come on, nigger. Come on, nigger. Come on up, fella. Well, you won't have to wait for me for a long, long time. No, you won't. Going on holiday, down to Cornwall. Rabbits, boy. Hey. Come on, Skipper, you'll miss the bus. Okay. Come on, nigger. Come on, boy. You wait there, old boy. Stay there. Come on, nigger. Stay there, nigger. Stay there, boy.
Oh, you know most of the chaps, I think. Hello, sir.
Hello, Hoppy. Hello, Shannon.
I found Nigger outside. Can I stand him a beer?
Yes, providing you don't give him more than a pint.
Right. And don't drink it too quickly or you'll get hiccups.
Sorry, old boy. It's secret. You can't know him. Now, come on, Hoppy. Hello, Nigger, old boy. What are you doing? Who are you looking for, eh? He's not in his office. You'd better try somewhere else. Go on, where you go? Come on. Hello, nigger. No, not near, old boy. Go on. Hello, nigger, old boy. What you doing around here? Now get these code words off by heart. Goner is the word for the explosion of a bomb in the right place. Nigger is the code word for a breach in the Myrna Dam, and dinghy for a breach in the Ada. You want me, Crosby?
I'm sorry, sir. It's Nigger. He's been run over. He's dead. The car didn't even stop.
Where did it happen?
Outside the main gate. He ran across the road, sir, and the car hit him.
Where is he?
In the guardrooms.
I see him. Light. So, just a minute. You know that Nigger was killed this afternoon?
Yes, sir. I'm very sorry, sir.
Will you do something for me? I'd like you to bury him at midnight on the grass verge outside my office.
Very good, sir.
I'd like you to do it then. Just about the time we're going into the job over there.
I see it's done, sir.
Hello, Hoppy. Tonight's the night. Tomorrow we'll have a party.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade, Justice, in for another program to share constructive information on racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the program. I hope you're getting constructive information that you can use. We do not want black people, non-white people, wasting time. We have way too many problems to be tuning in to any program if we are not getting constructive information and using our time and energy in the best possible manner. The sound clip, I thought, we heard a little bit from that film, The Dam Busters. For folks who maybe hadn't heard the previous broadcast, this is a 1955 World War II film where they have a black Labrador dog, and the dog is named Nigger. And that's a sound clip where different montage of scenes from that film. Hopefully, if you haven't seen the film, you know, you had a difficult time telling whether they were talking to a person or a dog. They give him a beer and he's sitting in a chair. But more than anything, definitely, I think, representative of the system of white supremacy and how racist man and racist woman feel about black people. I thought that would be a great introduction to today's program because I think the book we're going to be talking about towards the destruction of a nigger mentality. They say dog is man's best friend. I think they're talking about white people. I think any non-white person, any black person suffering from the victimization of white supremacy, I think that's the nigger mentality. Any non-white person suffering from that nigger mentality is a friend to white supremacist man, and white supremacist woman. Our guest, he seems way less confused about racism, white supremacy. In addition to authoring and writing directly and honestly about the system of white supremacy, he also offers a manhood training course. You can check out more information about his fantastic work, his website, www.nubiandirections.com. nubiandirections.com. Real pleasure to have him on the program with us this evening, Mr. C.C. Blackman. Mr. Blackman, are you with us?
Yes, I am. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to applaud you right away on the fantastic topic.
The most important thing we need to be discussing, racism, white supremacy, should be the topic for black people, non-white people worldwide. For folks who might not be familiar with your work, could you give them some more background information about who you are and the work that you do?
Okay, my name is C.C. Blackman. I'm based here in New York. I'm a publisher. I'm a publisher. I have a company called Nubian Directions. We try to publish social commentary books that address the conditions of our people. We try to keep the sales of those books amongst our people because we're trying to establish an understanding of, self-dependency, us working together to resolve our issue. I mean, we can't really have a successful change to our condition as long as we put up in the idea that somebody externally is going to help us do the things that we need to be doing for ourselves. If any of that was true, it would have already happened by now. So what we need to do is try to, foster a spirit of, independence as a people. I'm also the founder of a Start a Black Business campaign here in New York, where we are trying to address the deplorable condition which exists nationwide, where every time you find black people, and this is a worldwide phenomenon, the whole economic base of the local community is usually dominated by foreigners or, Europeans or anybody else, which is a tragedy because in New York we teach that all these businesses that we refer to as businesses are really wealth collection points, and everybody's collecting the wealth of the black community. So even though we may have $1 trillion moving through our hands in the course of a year, we never really understand how important it is to harness that wealth so that we can address the many, many pressing needs of the black community. So those are two of my pet projects. I'm also launching a new church called the First True Church of African Redemption, where we're dealing with primarily, our condition here on earth. We want to use our church as a church of functional unity. We want to have a church. It's an umbrella church. You can follow any religious belief that you want. We call the deity of the faith the creator, and we tell people to go to God in their own particular way. But we try to do what the Lord's Prayer says, which is on earth as is in heaven. And no people need to be concentrating on what their condition is on the earth more than African people or people of African descent. So we're about Pan-Africanism, black nationalism. We're about empowerment for African people. And we're also about making sure that our people have a clear understanding of the fact that certain people have organized themselves to guarantee that we remain, as Marcus Garvey put it, a footstool people where anybody can step on us to climb ahead. So that's basically a synopsis of what we're trying to be about.
I want to hop right to it. I know a lot of folks, they were eager to hear more of your views. I have concluded, unfortunately, that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. Use those two terms as synonyms. I have the same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that is an accurate definition?
Well, there's no question that the system of global white supremacy exists. Our brother Neely Fuller tried to explain this to us many, many years ago. Not enough of us know about his work, but you're right on point with your definition, and it concurs with the brother's definition of global white supremacy. Why this is important to understand is that it's a little like, being at war. I tell people all the time that we are a group of people that are at war, But the tragedy is that we don't seem to understand that we are at war. Yet everywhere you look, you see the casualties are piling up. You see the wholesale incarceration of black men. You see the collapse, the free fall of the black family. You see 70% of our children being killed in the womb. You see so much economic attacks on us. You see so many social and political attacks on us. We're the number one victims of hate crimes in this country. And I don't see any trend that's going to say that's going to change. You see how they have taken over our music and turned it to something that was beautiful and empowering and it reflected the soul of black people, and now it's some stuff that we can't even recognize. So everywhere we're experiencing attacks, the casualties are piling up, but yet and still we don't seem to know that we're at war. A guy once said to me that you have to drive a tank through the living room of black people to let them know that they're at war, because they just seem to be in denial about the absolute reality that, we are in some really dire straits, and it's primarily because we just refuse to accept the fact that there is a global understanding of those people who classify themselves as white, and it's even expanded to even some non-white people, because, everyone to get in on a good thing. And the problem is that when you have a situation where people have been essentially psychologically, physically, emotionally, spiritually conquered, which is to be overcome by the force of arms, you've wound up in a situation where everybody says this is a great thing. Like, I don't know how it is in Texas, but I know in New York, all foreigners know that if you want to come into America and be involved in business, you rush to the black community, because our people have been conditioned to support anybody that is not themselves. We have a serious boycott against our own people here in New York. It's very difficult to convince black people of the importance of supporting black economic ventures, because we're unaware of the fact that economics is a form of warfare in the minds of those who seek to exploit us. So, yes, of course, it's very, very important to address this issue of global white supremacy, to look at it for really what it is, and to understand that we have to come up with some way to counter that strategy, which is mainly for us to become organized.
Again, our guest for this evening's program, Mr. C.C. Blackman. Unfortunately, the only thing I would toss in, generally when I talk about this war of white supremacy, I unfortunately have to catch myself, and I think to be most accurate, white people are at war with us. At this point, I don't even think it's, and it's unfortunate, I don't even think it's correct to say that we are at war or counter war with them. Most of us, as you said, don't even understand or are not even willing to be truthful about the fact that, white supremacy does exist.
What comes to mind when you say that is the fact that, they say the first casualty of war is the truth. And white people have clearly won the propaganda war. There's no question about it. They spend an enormous amount of resources directed at making sure that they stay on top of the propaganda war and that they never lose that war. It's interesting to me that, we are so unaware of what a matrix people we've become and how controlled we really are. From the cradle to the grave, we cannot get to a point where we can, have the kind of critical analysis of media that would really reveal to us our real condition. So, when you think about this country, for example, you have the United States. It's existed for about roughly 250 years. It's founded on the mass murder and the mass genocide or ethnic cleansing or annihilation of the Native American. Then it's founded on the total exploitation of millions upon millions of our ancestors as African people. So now these two great crimes are the foundation of this country, and then you turn around and say 250 years later, if you're going to be the world's greatest criminal, or you're going to be the greatest, or you're going to commit some of the greatest crimes in the history of the world, you have to also be one of the greatest liars. It's important that you lie well. And what our enemies have done is they have mastered the ability to take control of the dialogue in such a way that you can never really have an authentic thought unless you are able to exit the system and really return to your African mind. And the problem is that we are not solving any problems as African people because primarily our black brains are not really being utilized to solve African problems. Our brains are being utilized to justify, make excuses for, coexist with global white supremacy instead of really focusing on what it is we should be doing as a people and what is really in our own interest.
Agreed. Unfortunate, but I think that is accurate. My co-host, Justice, I believe she's also with us. I believe she has some questions for you, Mr. Blackman. Justice, your line is open. If you have some questions, feel free.
Greetings, Mr. Blackman.
How are you, sister?
A victim of racism and white supremacy. Well, I am okay, but, I am a victim of racism and white supremacy. I have a few questions.
As we all are.
What do you mean when you say black?
Well, see, when I say black, I'm talking about a consciousness. I'm not talking about a hue, whether you are blue-black, whether you are as light as can be. My family, we have the whole gamut. We were taught that, your commitment to the struggle against global white supremacy and racism is what defines you as a black person. My feeling is that if you are a person of African descent and you accept your responsibility to fight against white oppression, then and only then do I consider you to be a black person. The rest of them I consider to be niggers. Now, I don't use this term to be insulting. I just have to, I think it's necessary that we clearly define what I mean, because a lot of people, when I deal in New York, a lot of people have questions about that title, Toward the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality. And I think it's easier for me to answer your question by to explain to you what my view on a nigger is. I define a nigger as a hater of self and kind, because and it's behavior-based. It's not something that you're born as, but if your behavior demonstrates that you're interested in black-on-black crime, the undermining of the interests of black people, the destruction of the black family, if you want to take on the kind of ethics that were first directed at African people and those ethics have now been adopted by some of us who are brainwashed against our own people, then I consider you to be a nigger. Now, black folks are in a dual war. We're fighting against those who are haters of self and kind because they've been indoctrinated into a system that taught them to do this. And then we're also fighting against those who are who are our open enemies, which are Europeans. And I think that, when I use this kind of language, I want people to understand that we're not trying to engage in, a race baiting type of thing where we're trying to get people to hit the streets or get angry, because that's useless. There's no military solution against Europeans. They often brag that they can blow up the entire planet 25 times, or more. So these people are the world's greatest barbarians. They are militaristic beyond, anything that we could even think about. Our people have been fattened up for the kill, so we're certainly not in a position to fight a military war. But we are in a position to reclaim our dignity if we would simply study what has happened to us, to reclaim what was ours in terms of what is culturally ours, and to also take the lead role in shaping our destiny as a people, using the best things that come from our own traditions and our own axiology as African people and how we see the world. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is that we continue to believe that Europeans are just like us. And if you understand the anthropological roots of how Europeans got to be the individuals that they are, as opposed to the African psychology, I think that it will serve you well in terms of understanding the differences and why it's so different in terms of the kind of appeals we make to them and why they fall on deaf ears and why they use that type of aggressive behavior, socially aggressive behavior against our people. So I think these kinds of things are very important. But just to simplify the answer, a person is black based, as far as I'm concerned, based on their commitment to our universal struggle as African people against colonialism, global white supremacy, and racism and psychological, physical, and spiritual slavery.
I heard you use the term black. I heard you use the term black nationalism.
Yes.
A lot. Okay. A lot of people on this program called the C.O.W.S, used that term before. I was just wondering, what do you mean when you say black nationalism?
When I say black nationalism, I'm saying anywhere where our people exist in numbers, we should be trying to form nations. And, you know, a lot of us get confused, but there are many, many nations within this nation that we call the United States. There are groups of people who operate purely motivated by their own essential interests as a people, and they also look to their historical homeland as a unifying with a unifying sense of purpose. For example, I live in a city where I can go down to Chinatown and you see exactly that going on. I mean, if you look at the Chinese history, they built the Great Wall of China to keep out barbarians and foreigners who they considered to be uncivilized, and they want to stay to themselves and perpetuate Chinese culture. I have no issue with that. African people, on the other hand, we are so focusing on what Europeans and others are doing that we can't seem to think about what is in our own interest. So when we talk about black nationalism, we're talking about, you know, white folks are doing what they're doing. We need to be doing what we need to be doing. The fact of the matter is, you know, we talk about just look at the concept of America. I tell people all the time, my flag is the red, black, and green. You know, those who say that, you know, it's about the American flag, I always try to remind them that this country has been here for 250 years. African people are the foundational people on the planet. We've been here since it all began for human beings. We have to remember that there is no black in the red, white, and blue, so we have to stop looking for a political solution in an environment that was never really established to give us the kind of tranquility, peace, prosperity that we would be looking for. So what we should say is that we may not be able to do anything about this concept or this container that they call the United States of America, but we certainly, where we exist and have the numbers and have the resources, we can certainly build an alternate system that takes care of the needs of black people. Because right now we are totally enslaved, a totally independent people. I live in a community where if the foreigners don't come to work, it's doubtful that people can get their basic necessities met. And that, to me, is extremely dangerous, knowing the history of African persecution over the last 500 years. So I think it's very, very critical when you start talking about black nationalism. It means just what it means, nation building. We have to be building nation building, and that begins with the strong foundation of strong family life, strong economic life, strong community life, strong communication apparatus amongst us, a strong agenda that is known amongst the majority of us. You know what I mean? So these are the kinds of things that we're talking about when we talk about black nationalism.
How did you get informed about racism, white supremacy?
Well, my grandfather came to this country from St. Kitts, and he was a diehard Garveyite. He raised my mother to be a diehard Garveyite. My mother married a man who was a diehard Garveyite, so I grew up in a home where we essentially understood the historical injustices. We were very clear about who our open enemy was, and we were very clear about not allowing so-called changing times to confuse us as to who the enemy really is. I think we've lost a great deal as a people because we have forgotten who our historical enemy is, so who has never really changed the way he felt about us. He may have changed his methodology of dealing with us, but basically the aim is the same. And I was taught very young that, you know, white people have a three-pronged agenda when they deal with African people. Their position is we will enslave you, we will exploit you, and if we cannot enslave you or exploit you, we will certainly kill you. And I think that where we have arrived in this country is at a point where we are looked at as superfluous and unnecessary, and everything has been set up now to guarantee our death, even though it's being done in a way that's not even, where most of us are not even cognizant of it. For example, when you consider the fact that the black family in the 1950 census was the strongest family by far family life ever achieved in America. You had more both father and mother in the home and extended family. 40 years later, 50 years later, you have the worst record on family life. Then you turn around, you consider the fact that 70% of our children are killed in the womb. This is not just a comment are doing. It's a comment about what brothers and sisters are doing and what the society is doing as a people. We used to be the most life-loving people. Now we're the most people that's quick to destroy the life of our children. When you consider the fact that we've been bombed with heroin in the 50s and 60s and 70s, then we got hit with the crack bomb. Then you had the wholesale downsizing of the black family with the welfare state, which said to the black man, if you exit your home, your family can receive public assistance. You know what I mean? And at the same time, they took all the manufacturing out of this country as soon as we started demanding our rights in this country, because one of the greatest expansions in terms of black progress in this country materially came in the 1950s, and that was a lot of it was a result of the fact that half the black population of the South moved into the northern cities seeking employment in these factories during World War II. After the war, there was still a little expansion, and then after that, we got back to, we started the civil rights movement, and as soon as we said, I'm a man, and we demanded our rights in this country, we ran right up against the backlash of racism. Europeans in the North or white folks in the North said, why are all these blacks moving up to the North? And why are they becoming so militant? Because I can remember very distinctly as a child, people in the North thought they were far more militant than the folks in the South. People who marched with Dr. King, folks in the North would laugh and say, these people are getting hit with water hose, man. We take it to these white folks. And, you had groups coming out of the North that were very popular and very militant. Black Panthers and others who, were destroyed by the counterintelligence programs. You had the contrast between Malcolm and King, and all of these symbolized to white people that folks in the North had this attitude where they felt that, black is beautiful and black militancy was growing. I don't know if you recall, but in the 60s, Lyndon Johnson said, along with J. Edgar Hoover, that the rising tide of this black militancy and black nationalism was the greatest threat to this country. So they systematically did what they had to do to dismantle that, and the primary focus of that was to first cut off the economics, so they shipped all these factory jobs overseas into the Pacific Rim countries and all out to Asia. So these brothers came back, a lot of them from World War II, and were not in the position to really actually employ themselves. So what you have now is a situation where you have a horrible situation. If you're into depending on white folks, as a black person, you're in bad shape right now because, like I said, they're downsizing everything. And when things are bad for white folks, it's 10 times as worse for black people. And so we really need to be focused on trying to approach our existence in a fashion that says we are going to be responsible for ensuring that we remain on the planet and that we are building the kinds of institutions that will sustain us. And that's what we need. We need institutions. It's great to have charismatic people. It's great to have, a lot of dialogue, because we've been dialoguing about this for about 50 years. But what we're not doing is building the necessary institutions that really will sustain our people.
Why do you define nigger in the context of white terrorism?
Well, I say a nigger is a hater of self and kind because I'm trying to make the person understand that if you behave in a certain way, you are now a tool of the white terrorism that we're complaining about. You have to hate yourself to do certain kinds of behavior. For example, if you look at so-called black-on-black crime, I love Amos Wilson's analysis of it. He said black-on-black crime in service to white domination. The fact of the matter is we feel more comfortable harming, hurting, being disrespectful and violent toward each other than we do to anybody. I live in a city where they shot one man 41 times and the police turned around and shot another guy 50 times. These guys didn't do a thing. I mean, talking about guys who are supposed to be into black machismo or into gangs and all this other stuff. You see no reaction. But if a black person was to violate them in the minimal way, you could get, seriously injured. So what we have to do is stop the double standard. If our fighting spirit is going to be strong, it should be against our real enemies and not toward each other. And I think in order to get black people to understand what it is to be black, we have to clearly identify that there is a war. There is a problem between black folks who are trying to address or live in a certain context that allows us to flourish as a people, and those who have been so brainwashed and so destroyed that now they're becoming instruments of terrorism against their own people. And the reason why we have to point this out is we lose a lot of people who could be warriors in the cause of correcting the problem out of frustration with the fact that they see a black face or a black hand is the catalyst or the tool that's being used against them. You know, a lot of times people tell me all the time, you know, I was on my job and now I finally understand why my coworkers, instead of being supportive, were trying to undermine me. You know what I mean? Because they're still dealing with this hate of self and kind mentality. We live with so much self-hatred and it's so below our conscious level of thinking that we don't even recognize that they have killed the whole African aesthetic in this country. Black is not beautiful, not because I don't believe it's beautiful, but because, like I said, we are victims of this mass media onslaught. They have won the propaganda war. Anytime most of our sisters feel uncomfortable, unless they put something on their heads that make them resemble Europeans, there is a problem. Because when you don't have an appreciation of beauty that is uniquely suited for your culture, you have a problem. The other day, I got a lot of calls because a Japanese guy came out and said that African women or black women are less attractive than other women in the world, and he comes up with his scientific explanation for it. It's totally ridiculous because did you ask a black man about this? And even if you ask some black men, so many of them have been brainwashed that they have a European standard of beauty. So like I said, we're attacked on so many different levels that we really have to even say amongst ourselves that you need to identify yourself. Either you are living in a context where you are fighting against the system or fighting to create things that will allow us to be sustained, because African people are nurturers. We are nurturers. That's what our evolution has been about. It's very hard to get black people to kill anything. We're not going to let nothing die. So we're not militaristic. That's not really our spiritual slant as a people. We're extremely forgiving, and we're extremely tolerant of all different types of groups. We're the absolute opposite of a xenophobic people. Anybody can come and live amongst us. We're very peace-loving people. The problem with us is that we have to learn that even in fighting against white supremacy, it's important to be against that, but it's also important to be for something. And that's what I'm saying. We need to be for building the kinds of institutions, primarily family life, primarily business life, primarily cultural life, to try to protect us from the onslaught of global white supremacy.
How does Nigger Mentalities strengthen global white domination, white supremacy?
Well, niggers are the foot soldiers for white people. If you look at the struggle in South Africa and you hear about the massacres, you know, that took place, you would find that these were often a majority of African soldiers or African police personnel under the leadership of white of European officers. So what happens is that they now use you. It's a very interesting point that you can't oppress any people without some level of cooperation from the people themselves. And the European has always been aware of the fact that you divide and you conquer. The problem with Africa, for Africans, is that Africa is by far the most ethnically diverse place on the planet. We have more than 600 different languages spoken among black Africans, which I shouldn't even have to say, but black Africans, and so-called tribal languages and dialects. We were never historically united under this idea that because our skin was melanated, we were one. That was never our understanding. Our understanding was that we belong to the tribal group that we belong to. So, for example, you can go to Ghana right now and find well over 30 different major tribal groups, however, which is nothing more than a gigantic extended family. However, they will all tell you what problems they have with each other, but they will never talk about the problem they have with the European, who in most cases is stealing all the resources and controlling everybody. They have played us that way for centuries. When we got on the slave ships, they were careful to make sure that they had mixed packs of different groups of people, different ethnicities. So we were Wolof, Mandinga, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, we were a number of different tribes. And when we got on this side of the world, on the Western Hemisphere, we came to the realization that it really didn't matter what tribe you was from. These Europeans had a common agenda. As much as they fought against each other historically, you can study European history and see that they were very warlike and very barbaric with each other. That's just, these people are essentially savages. And what they do to each other they came up with one universal theme, and that was that regardless of the fact that we might all be competing for slaves, I mean, let's look at the major slave trading countries. You had the Dutch, you had the French, you had the British, you had the Spanish, and of course the Portuguese, who were the biggest slave traders. All of these people got together and said that whatever differences we may have, we are all superior to Africans, and it's our right as Europeans to exploit them and to utilize them and to kill them and to steal what belongs to them. So they're united in that perspective. They may have their differences, but they come to a point of unity when it comes down to exploiting us. And what we need to be saying is that, listen, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in the Caribbean, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in the United States, wherever you are as an African person, you can guarantee certain conditions exist. We at the bottom of the world's social, we at the bottom of the world's political, economic, any kind of pecking order you want to look at, we are always at the bottom. And the reason that we're at the bottom is because we have not looked at what really unites the whole African world. And that is whether you were in Africa experiencing colonialism or whether you were over here in the West and you are the descendants of people who were enslaved and kidnapped out of Africa, your condition is the same and your enemy is the same. And the agenda has not changed. They have expanded the ways in which they reward certain, but really the bottom line, when it comes down to making the determination as to what is going to happen to you as an African person, you have no say in that. I mean, let's just look at what's going on in Libya right now. If you look at Libya on the African continent, you have a man who considers himself a Berber, which means he says he's indigenous to Africa. He did not come as part of the Arab invasion to northern Africa, who identifies with Africa, who has had the country that has been most charitable to the black nations of Africa. And when the African union members got together to say, let's try to negotiate a ceasefire or let's try to negotiate some kind of a peaceful resolution to the problem before the bombs started dropping by NATO, they were told, you have nothing to say about this. So we have to realize that there's still no respect for African people, and this is not going to change until we come up with a philosophy or come up with an understanding that is global, that unites us all, that is clear, you know what I mean? And it's very simple, and that's Pan-Africanism and African nationalism. The fact of the matter is African people all around the world must come to this consciousness where we understand that, look, you don't have to be against nobody, but you must be for yourself. Either you're going to have a way of determining what is going to happen to our people, or we're just going to be, our fate is just going to be left hanging in the balance, or is going to be the result of what white folks decide. And the problem with what white folks decide is white people are destructive. Anytime they come to a decision about us, they have a history of utilizing people and utilizing the earth, destroying it and moving on. So these people are crazy, and when black people no longer figure their plans on any level, they will do everything they can to eliminate us.
How do you think your book, Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality, is constructive in working against the system of racism, white supremacy?
Well, the book is constructive in that it allows a person to take a mirror. I have a Nigger Mentality detection test in the book, which allows you to understand how in your own behavior you are demonstrating hatred towards your own people. This is very important because our enemies have been very clever in their propaganda, so it's so insidious that a lot of times we do things almost reflexively, and we don't realize it is the residue of what we received as training during slavery, or we have received as training during the age of mass communication. We have to always remember that those people that marched with Dr. King and a lot of those people that supported Malcolm X were not people who were involved in the TV generation. You got to remember, TV really only started as a big thing maybe in 1955, and blacks by maybe the early 60s just started getting black and white TV. So you didn't have this information age or this entertainment age dumbing everybody down, so people could actually think. You could look at old film footage from the 60s, you could talk to a black man on the street who might have been, a sharecropper or might have been poor, but the level of mental maturity, the way they communicated is far better than what we have today. They have dumbed us down, and like I said, they have fattened us up for the kill. We moved off the land. We're in these cities right now. We don't know how to provide a single thing for ourselves. We don't know where our water comes from, where our light comes from, how to grow no food, how to heal ourselves naturally. We don't know any of these things because, like I said, we've been cut off from the land. And like I said, anytime you put our people in a situation where they have no recollection of what their true culture is, you're going to have this nigger mentality. So what I try to do in the book is I try to remind people of where we were, how we got into this situation, and how we must regain our sanity as a people, because we are clearly insane. Anytime you do as much to operate against your own interests as a people as we do, you're just out of your mind. And you have to be out of your mind, because you got to understand we've been the victims of 500 years of terrorism. You know, that's why it always perplexes me when I hear them talking about Arab terrorism and global terror and terror. Nobody has been more terrifying than these Europeans. They know how to punish black success. You look at Black Wall Street. You look at any number of examples. You had one of the greatest race riots in the history of the world right here in New York City during the draft riots. You know what I mean? You had the East St. Louis riots, which sent Josephine Baker overseas. I'm saying that they have terrorized us, killed us, murdered us all along, and nothing has really changed. Garvey was only able to rise to power because of the East St. Louis riots. So when you study the history, you got to understand that white people know how to deal with us based on the value system that they have. And the value system that they have says that we will survive, and we don't care if we have to kill every single black person or every non-white person on this planet. Now, that is the destructive force that they have evolved into. We have to also say that we are going to nurture ourselves and protect ourselves. I tell people that, Pan-Africanism is not a philosophy of hatred. It's a philosophy of love. It simply says that I'm going to elect and make a choice in a world that has shown African people nothing but hatred, that have pushed us out of the realm of humanity. Because, like I said, we don't get no respect. Our property is not respected. Our lands are not respected. Our lives are not respected. Our men are not respected. Our women are not respected. Our children certainly are not respected. So until we say we're going to insist on that respect, we must first give it to each other, and then we must teach the world by excluding people from our environment. Because I'm going to tell you something, there's so much creativity and so much talent that has been stolen from black people. And if you want to see white people go crazy, all you have to do is cut them off and leave them alone. We were much better people before we got involved with this fantasy of integration. Because integration is probably the most destructive thing that ever happened to black people. Because when you boil it all down, we got integrated in two ways. We got integrated, if you are in the Western Hemisphere, you were integrated with white folks because somebody on your bloodline was a victim of enslavement, of kidnapping and enslavement. And if you are in Africa, you are integrated with white people based on the fact that somebody was colonial powers came and conquered your country or took over your country. So when you're for integration, you're really for colonialism and you're really for slavery. And what we have to learn is that we don't need to have anybody in our environment or interact with us. We have enough genius, we have enough talent, we have enough organizational skills that if we just spoke to each other and if we planned infrastructure for each other and we planned for our survival as a people, you'd be amazed at what we could accomplish.
I've read.
Because one of the things. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, one of the most destructive ideas that we have right now is this paternalistic relationship we have with white folks. That we can't survive without the white Jesus, the great white father, the person in the White House, the person in the mayor's office. That's nonsense. African people have been here. We were the foundational people on the planet. We were the first. So what we need to be talking about is how we can focus on our issues. And you can do a lot to focus on your issues, and you don't have to spend your time trying to do a political analysis as to whether or not a black president is going to make a difference. We know that that's not going to really be significant. You know what I mean? The bottom line is that it's going to take us as individuals on the grassroots level forming a consensus about what we can do to empower ourselves. We have to stop thinking with this European mind and stop thinking in the structures that Europeans give us and the limitations that they give us about addressing our problems. We don't need no special permission. We have to talk to each other. We have to educate each other. In my Start a Black Business campaign, I used to remind people all the time, if we started to produce just some of the things that foreigners produce for us, we could change our whole condition. And that's just a fact. If you look at Japan during World War II, they almost bombed those people out of existence. What did they do? They started with a trinket economy. Just small things that they could manufacture and sell. When I was a kid, everything coming from Japan was a joke. Now the Japanese have made such inroads into the U.S. economy that they're the ones selling all the cars. They're the ones that's putting GM out of business. What we have to realize is that we have to start small. We have to respect who we are. We have to rediscover our love for Africa. You know, I always tell people that we were taken out of Africa, but Africa was ripped off from our ancestors. So your grandfather, your great-great-great-great-grandfather or grandmother who was brought over here in chains, she had property. She had a claim to what was in Africa. Now the whole world is running to Africa, not because they love Africans, but they want to resource rape Africa as Africa's been resource raped forever. And the fact of the matter, as long as they keep us impoverished, as long as they keep us uneducated, now I talk about education, I'm not talking about European education, because that's one of the biggest problems we have in Africa. We have one of the greatest brain drains in the world. African leaders who do try to send African kids over here to get an education, most of them never even want to return to Africa. And the problem with most of those kleptocrats who rip off their own people and get a little small payment when they allow these people to steal the gold and the diamonds and the titanium and the uranium, they get a little small payment, but these European countries are taking everything. And these leaders don't really care because, like I said, most of them, when they get educated in the West, they see the capitals of the West and they say, oh, my people are backwards, and they become agents of European domination. The only thing to stop that is that we need to have a wholesale commitment, and this is why history is so important. We stop talking about history. Our kids today don't know a thing about Dr. King. They don't know. All they hear is that I have a dream speech. They don't talk about what he was saying in '68 about the condition of his people. When he was talking about it's not enough to go begging the white man for a job. We have to be able to provide employment for our own people. So these are the kinds of things that get lost because we are not doing a good enough job to communicate or pass the baton to the next generation. So now we have this deplorable so-called generation gap where the old can't get along with the young, and the values of the young don't reflect the values of the old. And now we're terrorized by our kids because we have not kept the culture alive where we communicate about what's happening. That's why one of the reasons when I first put out Toward the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality, I was asked to appear on many, many different shows. And I refused if it wasn't under black control. I don't get on no white media. I don't even sell my book in regular bookstores because I did it as an employment program for brothers right here in New York and anywhere else where they want to be able to pick up books. We have to learn how to function amongst ourselves. We can't keep running around trying to tell people, trying to get other people involved in our freedom movement or our freedom struggle. We have to talk to our own people, and we have to learn to be self-contained. It's not about getting on TV screaming about whiteys are racist and the white man's the devil and all that stuff. It's about talking to your brother and doing what you can to build something. We have to become builders. We built the great civilizations of Egypt. We have to be builders. We built Timbuktu. We built Mali and Songhai. We built all of those places. So what we need to do is build right here, because if all that greatness lives within the African, and it absolutely does, you know what I mean? We taught the world civilization. That's why they take Egypt out of Africa, because they understand that if Western civilization was really birthed by, by ancient Egypt, and then it went to Greece and Rome. If that's the case, then they owe everything they have to Africans, and we know this. They have already done the DNA science. They know that we are the world's foundational people, so they know that. They know that. They know we're not only physically the strongest, they know we're mentally the strongest, but it doesn't manifest itself in the European system because the values are different. That's why it's important that our people learn to understand axiology. Everybody does not relate to the world the same way. Europeans are very member to object. Their whole thing is about objects. If you go in a European neighborhood, the biggest structures they have are banks. When you go in a black neighborhood, the biggest structures that you have, and you have them everywhere, are churches. Because it's clear that the relationship between spirituality or God is much more important to the African than it is to the European. If you do a Google search, you'll find that 98% of black people across all sections of society believe in God. That could not be said of any other people, not even close. So it's clear that we have a different axiology, a different way of relating to the world, and that's why I'm starting my church, the First True Church of African Redemption, because I know that for us, no philosophy is going to work. Nothing that we do is going to work until we marry our religious struggle to our our social struggle to our spirituality. And, this is the failure of the modern black church. I mean, when you look at a guy who's 26 years old, who's 13 years later killed, I'm talking about Dr. King, I mean, it becomes very, very clear that the preachers today are nowhere near as activists as this individual was, with all the influence they wield in the black community and all of the pimping that they're doing in terms of collecting resources, because the church is no longer the charitable institution that it really is supposed to be. and it's certainly not responding to the real needs of black people. I think it's a joke. Most of these guys just become prosperity preachers, and they're getting rich, and the bottom line, the conditions of black people have never been worse. Don't let the materialistic images fool you. The overwhelming majority of black people are catching pure hell. When you look at their family life, their relationships within their family that they're born in, within the family that they try to establish, the relationship between the black male and female, the relationship between our children, everything is absolute utter chaos because, again, we're not living in the context that's true to our history. We're trying to be honorary Europeans, and we're trying to appease white folks and trying to be non-threatening and trying not to complain about historical injustices, which is insane. Even if you don't complain about it, you should be organizing, realizing that, listen, these people, they have never considered you. So, we just sit here talking about we're shocked that white people are so callous. We're shocked. I don't see white Christians breaking their legs to go to black Christians to try to help them establish themselves economically. That's not happening. So racism is a reality. It's not because we want it that way. It's just because others make it that way. And our failure to organize ourselves with this understanding is very, very detrimental to us. It's extremely detrimental. Because I tell people, when I speak to African people, and I've spoken to black people all over this country and in different parts of the world, and I can tell you, we are all united. But what we are not is organized. We're not organized. So we don't have to be in despair about global white supremacy. If a group of people get together and say that we are going to use these people, we're going to exploit these people, we're superior to these people, fine. We have to get together and say we're going to love our people, we're going to build for our people, we're going to establish for our people, and we're going to protect the interests of our people. That's all we have to do. We don't have to lift a finger to go out and beat no white people up or none of that. All we have to do is stop giving to them the things that belong to us. Keep your money in your pocket. Find a way to spend it with your own people. Go out and establish businesses and services that serve the interests and needs of your own people. Market black, sell black, work with your people, employ your people. That's what it's all about. And build strong family life. Let's reestablish respect for black women. Let's reestablish respect for black men. Let's reestablish the family as our sacred and most important institution. These are the kinds of things that will lead to black nation building. Hello? Hello?
Justice, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I was looking to see if Justice, if she got disconnected. Looks like she might have got disconnected.
Okay, so, so that's basically what we're talking about. We're trying to get a grip on this global white supremacy. We need not be in despair about it because, like I said, we've had many, many great leaders tell us what we need to be doing. What we have to do is dust off things like the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey and some of our great leaders. And what we have to do is dust off what they said and implement it. Because a lot of people think that the Garvey movement was a failure. It was not. A lot of times things fail because they were never implemented. We can't expect our enemies to sit back and let us organize to go back to Africa and do different things without attempting to attack us. So if we can get rid of our naivety and we can stop believing that, we live in a world where people don't see us as a resource and as a stepping stone, then we'll have a chance to do some things as a people. I mean, history teaches a lot, and that's why it's very, very important to study your history as a people.
I think, Justice, your line should be open.
Can I be heard now?
Yes, ma'am.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I got disconnected somehow. My next question is, I've read on some of your work, and it said you are a public speaker. What do you speak about?
I speak about only one thing: how we can improve the conditions for our people. I don't speak. In fact, I try to speak only to black audiences because that's where my concerns are. White folks got plenty of people that's taking care of their interests. I'm not a motivational speaker that would be, appropriate for a white audience because, like I said, I spend all my time working on, how to improve conditions for African people. I have 3 children, and I've committed myself to making sure that I leave the world better than I found it, for them as African people.
thank you thank you so much for answering my questions that I wanted to ask you so far. Go ahead, Gus.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, the website, you can get more information, nubiandirections.com. I wanted you to share, and folks, if you can recall, the program began with the sound clip from the Dam Busters, 1955. White people groomed that dog, which was named Nigger. They groomed Nigger's behavior, the way that they wanted him to act and follow him here, following the white people here, following them there. And I believe racist woman and racist man have done the exact same thing to black people. And I was hoping you could share some of the ways that they have conditioned us to have this nigger mentality, which is integral to the maintenance of white supremacy.
All right, let's take a look at the evolution of the black family. The black enslaved family was clearly aware of the fact that they had one primary enemy, which was, let's say, white people, who brought us over here, kidnapped us, separated our families, and did everything they could to destroy us. You know, a lot of us lose the fact, and a couple of important facts in history that we forget. Slavery was by no means in any way a benign experience. When you look at Europeans who came over here, these are Europeans who had just came out of the Middle Ages who began this process. And during the Middle Ages, Europeans developed some of the most destructive and painful torture devices, which were used frequently on Africans on the plantation. They had every kind of device necessary to torture a person out of their mind. They had devices to prevent people from eating sugar cane when they were in sugar cane, cutting down sugar cane and different things like that. They would do they cut off genitals and chopped off feet and did all kinds of vicious things to terrorize African people into submission. And when none of that really was as successful as they wanted it to be, they came upon the understanding of African axiology to the extent that they knew that if you really want to control Africans, who family is the most important thing to them, you start to separate them as punishments for crimes. So what happens is the crime of trying to free yourself. So typically, the glue of slavery during slavery, we forget, was not necessarily even the torture. It was the idea that we would separate your family. And this is very, very important to understand when you start to update today as to how they control us. The same way they dismantled the family to control us during slavery, they have dismantled the family in the so-called post-Second World War period to control us. You got to remember, the civil rights movement begins roughly in the 50s, primarily with the murder of Emmett Till and the focus of people around the, because she's one of the unsung heroes. Mamie Till, the mother of Emmett Till, is one of the unsung heroes of the civil rights movement because people don't realize that was really the galvanizing flashpoint to really make people focus on the viciousness of Southern racism. And if you don't know the story of Emmett Till, I'm not going to go into it now, but it's something that you should really research. But if you think about it, when black people started crying out in the 50s and 60s and demanding equality under the law and full employment and full participation in the political process, what happened was white folks had a backlash. They said, we have to do something about this. And they went back to their playbook and said, well, what is it that we use to control African people when we brought them over here? And that was, let's undermine family life. Black family life during slavery is a very unstable thing. If you study what happened to the slaves after the Emancipation Proclamation, or really after the Civil War, you find that blacks went all over the South looking for displaced members of their family. Family was very, very important because that's how Africans see the world. That's African axiology. So since I'd say the 60s and the 50s, there's been a conscious effort upon white America to use policy and the systems of institutionalized racism to destroy black family life. And this is what we're seeing right now. When we see the homosexualization of African youth, this is all by design. See, everybody thinks this is operating out of choices, but this is really not. I mean, in my manhood training program, we get a lot of young men who have gender confusion or have sexual orientation confusion, and I basically explain to them that, if you can say that you are living this particular lifestyle, not because as a choice, just answer one of these two rhetorical questions. Were you ever molested? And then there's a percentage that say they were. That percentage that said you're usually responding to trying to validate somebody in your family or in your circumstances that violated you. So how much of that is really a choice? Secondly, when we look at what is going on with the family, we can really see why we're having this problem. Now, you got to understand, this is not being directed at our community as giving people a broader lifestyle choice or trying to encourage people to understand people might be different and some people may have a different orientation. I don't care what people do as far as, the choices that they make. They have a right, just like I have a right to make it. I'm not into trying to control people. But when I know that certain influences are being directed at my people, primarily to destroy our future, because if you homosexualize all the youth and you convince black women that, it's much more expedient for them to just support the children, you can't blame them because a lot of them are really just giving a no-confidence vote to the black men who have not gotten together and said, listen, we need to secure our families and our communities. One of the biggest successes of white terrorism was to convince black men to be individuals. And the problem is, we feel individual strength, but there's really no strength as an individual comparable to the strength that we achieved being interdependent. If we were interdependent people as we naturally function, if we were in our African culture, we would be a much stronger people. If you look at all people who are able to manage other groups of people, it is because those people are interdependent. They understand the same things, and they are able to rely on each other. So when an African ran off one plantation, white men from the surrounding plantations would all posse up, and they would go look for that black man because they understood that an act of rebellion against one white man was an act of rebellion against all of them. They understood how the collective interest must be served to protect the personal interest. Black people need to be reminded of that. We have to be reminded that if your children or your family is collapsing, that's going to have an impact on my community and may have an impact on my children. When I am out here battling to try to improve conditions for my own children, I know that I have to care about other black children because who are my children going to marry or most likely interact with? Their own people. So we have to have a collective view. The first system of government ever established in the world was African collectivism, which is an excellent system. We might have had, if you go to Africa, you see this especially in village life, you'll see the king, a council of elders, and the people understood that the conditions, that the responsibility of those people were really to take care of the conditions of everybody. There was no such thing about being outside the concern of the village, So we have to remember what we brought the world. All these systems that they keep telling us about, this democracy and this communism, all that stuff comes out of Africa, as do all these world religions. Another important point to remember is that there is nothing naturally religious about Europeans. All the great religions were imported to Europe. Jesus wasn't a European. According to their historical story of Jesus, is not about a European. That's about somebody living in the Middle East whose descendants traveled to Europe to give these people religion. Islam does not come from Europe. Buddhism doesn't come from Europe. None of these major religions in the world come from Europeans. So it's not natural for Europeans to have some of the kind of religious psychology that we would expect from them. You know what I mean? And this is very, very important when you understand their axiology is just different. They do not relate to the world like we relate to the world. So we got to stop looking at them or looking at ourselves as tragic victims of white supremacy. What we have to do is say that we need to respond to the fact that these people have issued the gauntlet to us and said, listen, we're going to be united around your exploitation. And we are so reluctant to take the necessary step to deal with that, which is simply saying that I must love my people harder. I have to work for my people harder. I have to raise the understanding of my people with more dedication, because if somebody's at war and is determined to kill you and exploit you and you have no idea about it, it's a real tragic situation. If you're walking around the corner and you don't know when you turn that corner there's somebody waiting to bop you upside your head with a baseball bat, you're in bad shape, and that's the condition of black people. We keep falling into the same traps because we have this expectation that there is something fair about these people. They have exploited us for years and centuries and took all that wealth, locked it into their economy. And now it's easy for them to say, oh, I'm not racist. Some of my best friends are black. But they are not going to do a single thing. When it comes down to sharing, they don't even pay that game no mind. And they tell their children at home, don't be like a nigger. They tell their children at home, this is how you exploit black people. That's what they teach their children. They're never going to tell you that, but that's what's going on in the white home. They have a different way of viewing themselves, where they're honest with their children about the psychology that put them in the position that they're in. And we need to be honest with our children. We need to say these people are dangerous. And the best way for you to, we have to understand the rules of white supremacy. Neely Fuller gave us quite a few. You know what I mean? White people must always be in charge of a situation, whether they're qualified or not. You know what I'm saying? White people set the standard of beauty. All these kinds of things we need to be conscious of. Because if we're not conscious of it, we'll continue to fall victim to the same old games. Their strategies are not new, and they're not as clever as they think they are. The problem is that we refuse to accept the ugly reality that there are some people on the planet that are so ruthless that they'll make it their business to murder, kill, and maim anybody on the planet that gets in their way of their psychotic desire to dominate. They are really a very sick people, and unfortunately, a lot of us are taking on the same social behavior and the same psychology. But let me get back to my attack on the black family. I'll show you just a little bit of what we're talking about. When you look at the black male and female relationship, following the policy decision that said essentially black women would be given home relief or aid to dependent children as long as there wasn't a black male present in the family. This is what they said. Even though when they gave aid to farmers who were in depressed conditions, the man could stay in his home with his family. They wanted to downsize black family life because when you have a strong father in the home, you produce, you have protection for that home. As long as the black woman is there with her children, this is why they kill me with these songs today. They always talk about, I'm an independent woman. All that simply means is that you're unprotected. You know what I mean? In our manhood training, classes, the first thing we teach the brothers is that you must be a protector of black women and children, African civilization, and your fellow black man. This is extremely important. I have 4 sisters, and I tell my sisters, if you are dealing with a man, make sure he has a clear understanding of what it means to be a black man. Because if you have that understanding, you will know what you need to do. You will know that you need to protect your community. You know that you need to have relationships with other black men that are constructive. You need to have the kind of relationship view that you have to protect your women and you have to protect your children. Right now, what we have is a predatory relationship because you have a large class of you have quite a few educated sisters. You have, and most of them, they can't even find a decent husband because the fact of the matter is there is a real social disparity. You know what I mean? You have so many is incarcerated. I live in a town where you got several of these homeless shelters filled with black men. Almost 1,000 black men at one shelter. You know what I'm saying? These are potential fathers. These are potential business people. So we have to we have to follow the example of different people around the world who responded differently to colonialism. You look at the Japanese today. Well over 50% of Japanese men are business people. 50% of them own their own business. If the white man is not going to allow you to function in a corporate structure, because in New York, I don't know what's going on other places, but most of your black men who participate in corporate America, unfortunately, they have to be completely neutered, and they have to make sure that they don't carry any real evidence of black manhood. I mean, this is amazing. If you look like a man and act like a man, more than likely you are pushing a broom, a mop, you're a security guard, you're a messenger, you know what I mean? But if you really want to participate fully in corporate America, you have to almost be a homosexual. And I'm speaking frankly about what the situation is. That's what we observe here in New York and in other places around the country. They do not want strong black men. Strong black men can be, black men, if they are empowered, like any other man, they would take care of their family and do what they have to do. And their primary reason for not being empowered is because they're not working with each other. They still insist on trying to deal with a system that's from its inception was never really about your survival. White people have been consistent with black people, and that's the mistake we're making. We keep hoping and wishing that they would be different, but they're never going to change. And what we have to do is just accept them for who they are and then decide to work on protecting our own interests as a people. But you look at some of the influences we've been under. Ain't nothing going on but the rent. What's love got to do with it? They came out with The Color Purple, which is a fictional account. A lot of people don't understand that is fiction. It was written by a woman who was a lesbian, Alice Walker, and then they sent it to Hollywood. The guy Steven Spielberg took it over. This is a master illusionist. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws, Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, various things like that. So this guy's an illusionist. So they create this movie where the dominant line that sticks with you in the middle of the movie is silly, you're black, you're ugly, and a woman. And you walk away, if you're a black woman, believing that your historical oppressor was not the white man, but in fact was the black man. Your historical oppressor was the black man. And this is what this is the kind of the media that is used to polarize black men and women. So now we have black women going in one direction, black men going in a different direction, not remembering that when we got on those slave ships, we knew who the oppressor was, and he was not the oppressor of just the black woman. He was the oppressor of the black man and the black woman. So we need to realize that we have to mend fences. We have to come to the realization that we are not no opposite sex. We're complementary sexes. Black men have never been intimidated by the strength of black women. And black women understood that historically that they need their black men. These are the same women who during slavery told us that he can touch my body, but he can't touch my soul. The black woman has been great, and the black man has endured much, but he has to solve this problem. He has to man up and deal with his brother and come to the conclusion that we must teach our women and children to support the efforts that we make to break away from the colonial system. We are still in the colonial system. Anytime all your economics is controlled by foreign people, something is wrong. We are a wealthy nation of people if we would just control the wealth that we have. Others have done it, and we can do it ourselves. We have to, in New York, we're calling for boycotts, not a boycott, we're calling for economic non-participation zones where we don't participate. And if we can reduce the business, because you can never get all black people to follow anything, but if you can get enough of us to stop participating in small zones till the foreigners move out and then open up shops and businesses that cater to the needs of our people and employ our people, we will have a chance at taking back our economy. Because right now, most of the business districts is in the black community. I don't know how it is where you are in Texas, but they're corridors of shame. All the children see is white people taking resources or foreigners taking resources, which is very detrimental because that leads to the conclusion that the only time we can get paid is shooting the basketball, singing and dancing, or selling drugs. And this is the kind of crisis that we're in because we need to start to send our children into the professions, and we need to come back to our own community and service the needs of our own people and dream dreams of service to each other. So these are the kind of things that we're up against. So if you just look at that critical relationship between the black man and black women and see how that whole thing got all twisted in the last 50 years. We went from singing Ain't No Woman Like the One I Got and Give Your Woman a Standing Ovation to this trash that we sing today that's all about sensuality and sexuality where there's no real appreciation of the human being. So like I said, we have become very desensitized to our humanity by following these Europeans. And the quickest way to find destruction is to follow Europeans. And that's my conclusion. You can't just be against white supremacy. You must look how Europeans have influenced you and made you a white black man or a white black woman so that you can reclaim who you really are as an African. Even around the world, they're trying to force this on people. If you look at what's going on in Africa, the IMF and the World Bank, who are controlling and dominating these African countries and these Caribbean countries, it's ridiculous. They say if you have any laws against homosexuality or anything like that, or if you don't allow abortion on demand, because you got to remember, in the third world, you may not be able to get fresh water, you may not be able to get food all the time, but you can always get an abortion on demand. So the UN sees to that, and the people who have this white supremacist agenda, they see to the fact that they're really trying to, eventually in a benign or in a in a way, just murder. It just to get us to murder ourselves. And that's the really greatest success of white supremacy. They've gotten us to a point, and this is why Nigger Mentality is so important to understand. White supremacy has gotten us to a point whereupon they don't even have to kill us, we will kill ourselves. It's not about the Klan anymore. It's about what black people are doing to each other. Because like I said, it comes from these people, but at the same time, it has been adopted by us. There's an identification with, when you take a people and you steal from their culture any sense of who they are, any sense of their own history, they become grafted onto your society. So we start to feel about our own people the way white people feel about us. And this is the danger of nigger mentality. You have a lot of us walking around with the same kind of contempt that white people hold us in, the same kind of anger and the same kind of hostility that they have historically directed at us. A lot of us feel toward each other. Just look at the African aesthetic. A lot of us are not comfortable in our natural appearance. You've been looking at Europeans on TV every day. They've been telling you this since the time you were born, that everything white is beautiful, everything black is substandard or inferior. And this is they don't have to say that to you verbatim. They show it to you all the time. You die first in every movie. Everything that you do is associated with failure. So unless we understand how we're being bombarded in that way, we don't have a chance. We really don't have a chance. You know, the information has already been here. It's been here for years. We have to just organize around the right thing to do. You don't have to be no rocket scientist. You don't have to be the most brilliant person in the world. All you have to do is love who you are, love what God created in you, and understand that we are in a fight because we have to respond. But the response is not about reacting to white racism. It's about building black institutions, building institutions that will sustain us. Because like I said, if you try to get black people to fight, you're wasting your time. We're not going to kill nothing. We're not going to let nothing die. What we need to do is start to focus on what we can build because we are nurturers. We support white people. White people are supported big time by black people. We support the whole world. All kinds of foreigners know the benevolence of black people. They ain't scared of us. That don't stop no Jew, no Indian. That don't stop no Arab. That don't stop no white people or anybody from coming to your community to collect your dollars. They ain't afraid of you like you think they are. They know that you love everybody but yourself. And so what we have to do is learn how to respect, love ourselves, rekindle a movement that's about sustaining our lives on this planet as African people. If we can do something over here, you know, because you got to understand, this is the leading black culture in the whole world. Black Americans and the foolishness that we do is transported all over the world. You know, the dumb stuff we do over here is going on in Africa, it's going on in the Caribbean, it's going on anywhere. So if we are the head on the body, we need to try to get it together right here. Because we know this white man better than anybody. Because nobody got screwed over more than the African American in this country. And if you study the history, you will see that even if you look at history, if you look at the Caribbean slavery, brutal, vicious slavery, but the family was still mostly intact because in the Caribbean experience, the slaves or the Africans outnumbered the Europeans all the time on the islands. But in the United States, you could have 400 blacks on the plantation, but the larger community was white. If you are in Montego Bay and they sell your mother off to try to separate your family, they send her to some other part of Jamaica, it's likely that you're going to be able to reunite with her. But if they sold your mother from Tennessee and sold her to Arkansas, you wouldn't know where the hell to find your mother. So the bottom line is that what they were able to do with the African over here is just unbelievable. I mean, even in the Caribbean, they would have a mulatto-sized class that they would utilize to help. You know, they would tell them that you got a percentage of white privilege if you help us oppress the black African. You know, in Brazil, they have maybe 20 different classes of what it is to be black. They did the same thing in South Africa. But in the United States, they didn't even have to play that game. The only place where that was played is maybe down in New Orleans or in Louisiana. But generally speaking, they didn't care if you was light-skinned, black, star-skinned. You was a nigger, and you was going to be exploited and misused as a what. They didn't have to make no compromises because there was enough criminals, white criminals, to control even the largest black plantation. You know what I mean? So you would never get what you had in Haiti over here. Although we had countless slave rebellions over here that are totally unrecorded. You don't hear anything about. All you hear is Denmark Vesey. You hear about Nat Turner. You hear about those kind of rebellions, but you don't realize how much resistance Africans right here in this country gave these crackers when it came down to this type of brutal exploitation known as slavery. You know what I mean? So these are the kinds of things that we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of the fact that there is no pathology going on in the black communities that was not part of some white policymaker's decision. Even the government, their policies are designed to destroy black family life. If you had anywhere near the numbers of European men locked up in jail, young European men like we have as African Americans, it would be a national outcry to do something. So like I said, they don't give a damn about us, and it's up to us to give a damn about ourselves. That's the history of the country, and we need to stop sugarcoating history to our children. We need to tell them what's going on, because we keep sending our children into a meat grinder of racism because we are unwilling to tell them that this American dream is really a damn American nightmare unless you understand it. Sure, we can make progress in America. Sure, we have a big investment in America, but we must do this with a consciousness of doing what's in the interest of African people and staying focused on what we got to do. Because America can work for black people. It works for a lot of different people. But those people keep their mind on their business and keep their mind on what they have to do in this country. I live in a community where, I'm not far from Crown Heights. And in Crown Heights, some Jews don't spend a single dime with nobody other than their own people. Okay? Nobody's attacking them for doing that. They build their own educational institutions. We have the same right to do the same thing. We do not have to be plugged into this society that hates our guts. The country is more segregated than it's ever been. It's more segregated than it was in the days of Dr. King. So we need to wake up and smell the coffee. There is no great melting pot. We are a group of people that have been slated for destruction and for exploitation or death, and that's the bottom line. That's the relationship they have. If you want to see a problem, and the greatest thing is that we don't even realize our own strength. I mean, we can shut down whole corporations, man. Black people are enormously important to the economy of the United States. I mean, we are so important. There's so many companies that depend on us. We can shut down businesses overnight if we decide to keep our dollars or direct our dollars back into our own pockets. So these are the kind of things that we need to do. If we want to be revolutionary, we got to preach love, unity, organization, business organization, family life to our people.
Context of White Supremacy. I'm gonna go to the phone lines at 9:30 Eastern. So in about 6 minutes, I'm gonna go to the phone lines. I wanted to get in 2 questions. So if we could, you could maybe get a 3-minute answer to these questions that I'll save some time for our listeners. I'll give out the number really quick. If you want to dial in on the free HD line, the number is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. The Skype line is open. Feel free to dial in. This information is in the description at TalkShoe, so if you didn't write it down, just look in the description, and all that information is right there. Question number 1, you mentioned that you have 3 children. Real important topic. I think that's one of the things that we have failed to do, is to educate our children and be honest with them about racism, white supremacy.
We try to teach them, some practical information. And this is very, very important. We try to teach wisdom. This is very important, honest knowledge and wisdom. I mean, man, when I was a kid, there were so many different sayings that older folks would give you to try to, give you little lessons about how to view the world, how to function in the world, how to, manage your thinking. And these are the kind of things that we give to our children, and this is something that has really been lost in the black home. When you consider the fact that the TV is on some 21 hours a day in a typical black home, that's not what I say. This is what advertisers say. 21 hours a day, we watch the most television. In fact, we're the most entertainment-driven people on the planet. They say that we single-handedly support whole industries. We're the number 1 ticket buyers of movies in this country. So we need to realize what a role we play, because we're into escapism.
Hold on. Is that, you said we are the number 1 ticket buyers? Is that true?
Yes, black people buy. Anytime these blockbusters come out, black people are the number 1 ticket buyers. That doesn't mean we buy the most tickets. It simply means that percentage-wise, when you look at different populations and different groups, we are the number 1 ticket buyers of movie tickets. It's a fact. We have the highest percentage of our population that purchases tickets, movie tickets. And when you think about why this is because we are into escapism. We love to escape because the entertainment is a form of, easing the stress that you feel from living in a society that is not really designed around you, period. And you can create the illusion that you are somehow well-adjusted in the society as long as you're properly being entertained. It's like taking a baby and bouncing them on your lap. He just thinks that everything is okay, even though it could be a whole bunch of crises going on around him. And that's our condition. So, we need to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. If that is true, that percentage-wise we are the number one ticket buyers, and I mean I know all about the escapism. I totally agree. If that's true, wow, I feel I feel like we have been correct in doing a lot of analysis of television and film. If black people are spending this much time, particularly since white people, I mean, you talk about warfare. White people do heavy duty warfare in entertainment. I mean, you talk about racism, white supremacy. It is constantly broadcast. Every film, every television program. I don't think you can find one that is not, reinforcing the nigger mentality and white supremacy. Wow. But I do want to
another area. Look at fast food. All this genetically modified food, all this garbage, because black family life has deteriorated, we eat in the street, man. If you look at McDonald's, which is the most successful fast food company in this country, they could not make it without black people. Black people single-handedly uphold that franchise because black people are much more likely to eat in the street. Because, like I said, we no longer, for the first time in our history, the 2000 census said for the first time in our history, we are predominantly a single people. We have more single people than we have married people. This is very, very important because what takes place in the marital situation is you have communal, collective living. So when you break up with your woman or you get a divorce, you got to go out and buy a microwave, a TV, or this and that. So they promote, the breakup of these relationships because it's good for the economy. America's a big business, and we got to be aware of the role that we play in this, nobody's family life is more fragmented than the black family. And it's not because that's our culture, because clearly 50 years ago this was not the case. It's because it's by design. If you have people who are coming from weak, fragmented families, they produce weak individuals. Strong families produce strong individuals. That's not to say that you can't be a strong individual coming from a weak family, but generally speaking, your chances of being a strong individual coming from a family where you had people who came together with an understanding that child nurturing was going to be important and sensitive, lessons were going to be learned, I think that, that plays an enormous difference. And we should be really, really trying to promote strong, healthy relationships amongst our people.
Agreed. I want to hit the phone lines. It's a lot of people on the line today, so it would be helpful if you could press *8, because it's kind of a lot of people. It's getting to the point where it's too many to go through all the lines. So if you could press *8, that would let me know if you have a question for Mr. Blackman. Thank you. Asar, did you have a question? Person who dialed in with the handle Asar, your line is open. Did you have a question?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If blacks were to buy tracts of land adjacent to New York City, they would still need to have the need to protect them. They want to create their own communities. So there's always going to be a default problem, I should say, with trying to create something in America. What's your thought on that?
Like I said, you don't have to have, first of all, you have no military solution against these people. That's a waste of time. You can build, but what you have to understand is before you can even lay any brick in any foundation, you have to first have the kind of consciousness necessary to support what you're trying to build. For example, if we look at the whole issue of the United States of Africa, we know that they were trying to form the United States of Africa, or they have the African Union. It cannot be a success unless people are willing to set aside national identity or tribal identity in favor of the interests of the collective. In order for that to happen, you must first have mass education, you know what I mean, and throughout Africa and the rest of the world on the importance of Pan-Africanism. But once that idea is taking roots in the minds of the grassroots, now you can build anything you want and nobody can stop you because you have you have almost 1 billion or more people on the planet trying to support the same thing. This is very, very important. So you can't do it in terms of a small group saying we're going to go and we're going to try to take some land in the South or do this or that without first making sure that we have enough of us that have committed to that, to living in that particular context to make that really a success. And that's why education is the greatest need. And when I'm talking about education, I'm not talking about academics. We need social education because right now we're socially retarded people. We're not acting in our own interest. We're acting against our own interest because nobody has really done the analysis. We have done the analysis, but we haven't disseminated this information amongst even the simplest of our people. And in order to do that, you've got to get them to turn away from matrix culture, to turn off the TV, to turn off the radio that is not talking to their situation. I mean, if you got some intelligent stuff on television that's speaking directly to our needs as a people, then that's fine. If you got something on the radio like that, other than that, we shouldn't be supporting any of these programs because the greatest need is for us to get into our history because history tells you who you are and it tells you where you need to be going.
I'm just going to get another caller. If you are at TalkShoe, you can press *8. If you have a question for Mr. Blackman, and we can get you on *8 if you have a question. I'll also check the free HD line. Let's see. On the free HD line, the person that called in, last four digits 3413. 3413. Did you have a question?
No, I don't. But thank you, and I'm enjoying the show.
Thank you for listening in. Person on Skype using the handle Prophet. Prophet on Skype. Did you have a question? Okay. We'll assume he is just listening in. The person who dialed in from Connecticut. Did you have a question for Mr. Blackman?
And Mr. Blackman.
How are you?
Yes, how you doing? Yes, I did have a quick question. A lot of your points, I'm an educator myself. I try to touch on all those points that you did, but you do it in such a dramatic way. I'm blown by it personally, and I thank you for all your information. My quick question is, I'm one of those sisters that you described, educated, got 2 degrees, and find it very difficult to find a suitable mate who's conscious, or I won't even say conscious because that term is overblown, but like you already described, willing to do what it takes to be about our people, Pan-Africanist. I've studied with a number of these type of individuals. So my question is, I'm frustrated. What would you say to women like me who, I've studied
I have 4 sisters.
Pan-Africanists? Yeah.
All right, I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers. I tell my 4 sisters when they were looking for mates that, listen, the first thing you have to understand is that, we must make it. This has to be a win-win solution for the black man and the black woman. So if you are an educated sister or you have decent employment, find you a brother who has a good moral character to him, somebody who wants to be progressive. And what you need to do is start a family business, even if it's something small, something so that he can earn his dignity. Because usually the typical problem is most sisters want to marry somebody that's at least functional. A lot of them have given up about marrying up, and a lot of them can't find anybody that is, it's very important that we understand that we have to uplift each other. And I think that for sisters who are in that situation, because that is one of the most unfortunately, that's probably some of the best qualified sisters in terms of education and economics are most likely to be single. And it's for a variety of different reasons. But part of the reason is that a lot of brothers really don't have the ability to relate to them, not because they're particularly well educated. They just look like they're part of a system that he's excluded from. And so they just relegate those sisters to being people that just, the system. You know what I mean? So they don't really deal with those sisters for a variety of reasons. And the truth about the matter is just not that many qualified brothers. Now, what we used to have at the turn of the century, we had African women who were part of anti-lynching leagues. You know, they would actually take to the street, dressed in white, protesting the lynching of black men. But black men get lynched in a different way today, and you hear nothing. I mean, sisters should be protesting outside these homeless shelters. They should be protesting outside these jails. If you put all our men in jail, if you put all our men in the homeless shelters, what will we have? What is happening is that black men and black women have to remember that we need each other and we love each other. I mean, the most natural, suitable mate for a black man, in my opinion, is his own woman. And the same thing for the sister. And in order for this to happen, we have to forget what they have been trying to impose on us for the last 50 years, which is that black women, you go toward feminism, black men, you go toward this nihilistic, predatory mentality where you just a gun for hire, you'll mess with anybody. And we have to reestablish the African aesthetic. We have to tell sisters that you have to distinguish yourself by operating, you know, because I see conscious sisters, a lot of good women, but they look like the typical sisters that run the street with a sense of desperation, you know, half naked and all that other stuff. And, you know, like I said, we have to be able to distinguish ourselves. You have to get involved in organizations and groups where you are more likely to find men who have some degree of consciousness. And that's really what it is, because just like there's a lack of good black men, there's really a lack of conscious black sisters. And what we have to do in order to put these people together, because we need our best people getting with strong people and being able to fulfill themselves, because like I said, if you in the projects and you might have no education and you might be, you know, really just have no sense of direction, you might have 5 kids. But if you got a good education and you're functional, you might be, you know, you might be childless. I mean, that's the kind of culture we've created. So I'm saying children who have the best ability to survive, because there's nothing wrong with any of us having children, whether you're in the project or whether you have attained a degree of functionality or affluence or whatever the case may be. There's no problem with either one of them having children, but the problem is that the one that has no education or no prospects or has limited information, her children are going really into a meat grinder. And we're not producing people who could serve as leaders for our community. This is very, very important. You need people who are functional, because strong people will be able to produce well-adjusted children who will be able to provide leadership for the rest of our community. This is the greatness. If you look at Martin Luther King, he was able to do what he did because his father was a successful businessman. Also, his father was a successful preacher, whatever the case may be. That allowed him to educate his son at Morehouse and Oxford and all this stuff, and he was able to come back and serve his people. So we need to have folks who can function and folks who have resources, who still understand the struggle and are committed to that, so that when they produce children, they can produce a class of people that are really able to come back and give this service to our community. You know, and so good luck in your campaign system.
I think Justice, she said she had a couple more questions. Justice?
Not a problem.
Yeah, your line should be open, Justice.
What do you do when you are around white people who practice racism, white supremacy?
Well, the first thing you have to learn how to do is to ignore white people. It's very important to ignore white people and not to spend all your time reacting, trying to correct them. See, I accept white people just as they are. They don't bother me. I understand their agenda. I know what they're about. I don't have any expectations from them. You have to stay out of a position where you need them to validate you. If you need them to validate you, you're in bad shape as an African person. One of the only type of black people they really respect are those black people who don't have the energy that says, I need you to approve of me, I need you to accept me, I need you to validate my humanity, I need you to accept me in your social circles as if I'm an equal. I don't even waste no time with that. I understand, and I start with the understanding that these people are racist. They're not about justice. They're about perpetuating a system that allows them to stay in control. And my only power is to just dismiss myself from that whole evaluation process that they like to do with black people. And when you do that, oddly enough, you find that they are forced to respect you. They will always try to pull you into dialogue, try to pull you into circumstances where you have to defend your blackness or defend what's going on with our people culturally, but resist the temptation to spend your time trying to correct white people and their problems. Just function and be dignified. See, dignity and silence says it all. You don't have to do any more but be dignified and silent. You know, I've been in job situations where it was all kinds of energy directed at me. It was never really successful because I kept the focus on myself. I was never openly angry or hostile and waste my time because I never had the misconception that these people are anything than what they are. I know what they will do, and I understand what they will do, and it got to a point where they just had to find out what I was thinking, and I still did not allow them to understand anything beyond the fact that I was intelligent. Not that I had to prove anything to them. I was intelligent enough to understand that I don't, you know, they're never going to validate me and accept me like that. And all they do is build. They set us up to knock us down. I mean, that's all they do. I mean, you look at a guy like you look at some of our outstanding people who have gone out there trying to deal with white folks. You look at a guy like a Michael Jackson. You can bend over backwards. But the bottom line is you're not white. And so when they decide that they're going to all unilaterally just call you wacko jacko and just destroy you and come after you, even though you've done everything you can to be as non-threatening as you can, the mere fact that they fear black excellence is always going to put you into a situation that at some point they're going to come for you. So don't even waste your time. And we have to, by all means, stop reacting to white racism. I didn't say stop responding intelligently to aggression by white people, but I'm saying there's no point in, you know, us beating ourselves up every time they shoot somebody black. Anytime we can't do that. We have to be more sensitized toward going after the things we do to each other because we have a greater chance of controlling that. We have no chance of controlling. I mean, you got to understand, all their systems are designed to protect white supremacy. So they rape black women. It goes to court. It's a joke. They shoot black men. Police shoot black men. It's a joke because the whole society has been trained that we are a group of people that are below any kind of consideration. So when you put a jury in there with their racist mentality, they don't care if they shoot a black man 50 times or shoot a black person 40 times or rape some sister. They can never see injustice when they do it. So it's a waste of time to spend all your time trying to react to it or even trying to defend it. Don't waste your time with that. It is very enervating and it will destroy you.
What is the universal Nubian? What is the universal Nubian Improvement Association about?
UNIA is really an updated version of a Universal Negro Improvement Association. We dealt with 10 African imperatives. They're right there online. You can take a look at them. And essentially, what we were trying to do is trying to alert African people that we must bring up to date a lot of the movements that we formally have abandoned, not because they were not successful. It's just that usually, you know, we have to understand that we have been in this global struggle against white supremacy for almost 600-700 years now, maybe even longer. You know, we have to remember that when you look at African enslavement by foreigners, okay, and, you know, we use the term slavery loosely, but there has been nothing compared to, I don't even know if you can call this thing that they did in America on the Western world slavery, because it goes so far and above anything that the world has ever seen in terms of the abject exploitation of a human being. I mean, all phases and just the defiling of the person and their culture. I mean, it just boggles the mind. But what we have to understand is that racism, white supremacy, as a system, you know, it debases a human being to such a degree, you know, especially if you don't understand how it's being utilized against you. It just boggles the mind. So I think that what we have to do to protect ourselves is, like I said, we have to be sure about what we know. We're sure about certain things in history, and we have to know these things. We have to trust what we know. And we have to stop arguing with reality and just say, listen, this is the reality. These people are not going to change, and so this is what I have to do in order for me to function. This is what we have to do. When it comes down to institutions, you look at the Universal Negro Improvement Association founded by Marcus Garvey, and there was so much good that came of that. In fact, that was the most successful organizational attempt we ever had in history. We had chapters of the UNIA all around the world. You had, at one point, over 5 million members. So if we could ever do something like that today, I mean, this guy was living in a time where it was telephone, telegraph, and telenegro, and that's how you got your message out. Now we got Twitter, Facebook, we got all this other crap out there, and we can't seem to communicate a basic ideology that basically unites us. You know what I mean? There's nothing that we say in the African imperatives that's offensive to any race. It's just talking about what we need to do to have responsibility toward ourselves as African people. We cannot, just say we're citizens of the world and we're united with all other human beings, because that's not how the world works. People live in context. A Chinaman born in Seattle or born in New York City has a connection and an affiliation with Chinese culture and mainland China. He cares about the fate of what's going on in the Chinese world. Africans can do no less. We're so concerned about what's happening in the European world, we forget that we have a responsibility to a continent. We have a responsibility to each other, because that's how the world works. You have to live where you are. You have to start with the people that you are amongst. You can't have, there can't be no love. This is like interracial relationships. I tell everybody that I know that, how could that really work when relationships are predicated on respect? White people cannot respect you as an individual but hate you collectively. That doesn't work. I had a sister, she was dating a white guy, not my sister personal, but a sister that I knew was dating a white guy. And she was telling me how wonderful the guy was and how progressive he was and how much African culture he accepted and all this other stuff. I said, why don't you invite your brother for dinner? So she got back to me that she invited her brother for dinner, and then it really came out how this guy really felt. And I said, this is why it's very important to understand that you cannot love black people as individuals and hate them collectively. You understand what I'm saying? You have to, and I don't think that they're capable of doing that, because I know that real relationships are built on respect, mutual respect. If the white people don't have mutual respect for you, then you really don't have anything. Now, the first thing you do when you meet a person, just like in the first question about working with them, the first thing you do when you meet a person is you have to say, listen, if you don't have the proper level of respect for me, that's fine, but I'm going to do what it takes in order for you to learn that respect. And that's what black people got to understand. You can't expect white people to ever treat us differently when we don't even have the respect that we're supposed to have toward each other. If what happened to African people over the last 500 years happened to Europeans, brother, it'd be hell to pay. It'd be hell to pay. But African people, because our axiology is different, we have had a different response. But at some point, we're going to have to show the world that we're worthy of respect, that we respect our own humanity by simply divorcing ourselves from cultures and systems that don't favor us and building a system that does take care of our people. You know what I mean? So that's what we have to do. That's what we have to focus on.
Justice, if you could hang tight for 1 second, because some people did call in and they have a hand up. We have about 8 minutes left. We'll see if we can get back. Thank you kindly. Texas, did you have a question for Mr. Blackman? Quick question.
Yes, Gus. Greetings to you, to Justice, and the callers and the listeners on the line. Mr. The guest, please, if you can answer this question for me. I've heard it discussed and argued amongst a lot of black nationalists or Pan-Africanists between the red, black, and green being a flag and a banner, and some people are saying it's a banner. Some are saying it's the flag. My understanding with flags is that with a flag you have a nation and a land that it represents. And since the blacks are the indigenous people, we don't have that so-called representation. Can you please distinguish between the two?
Well, for me, it's very simple. The red, black, and green represents African people and in continental Africa. It's just that simple for me. Whether it's people say that, I don't know how people could associate it with, if you know the history of the red, black, and green, it was the flag of the Garvey movement, but it was also the flag of unified Africa. So it's very clear that's what it still means to me, and it is an idea that we must work toward, but nonetheless, it's this motivation. The key is, what does it do for you? Whether you want to see it as a banner of, because the bottom line is that we have a whole bunch of flags, you go down to the Caribbean, we got a flag for every different island, And this is just a new, revamped version of tribalism. Because you got to remember now, we were never unified on this idea of being black. We had to be shown that we need to unify around our Africanness or blackness based on what Europeans did to us. So if I say I'm a Trinidadian or I'm an American or I'm a Jamaican or I'm a that really is too small of an identity to really protect us from global white supremacy. But when you're down with the red, black, and green, that should be internationally understood as a person that understands that, it's going to take Pan-Africanism to bring about a unified African continent or a unified global African consciousness. So for me, the red, black, and green is actually the symbol, the flag, and the banner for all progressive African people.
Person who dialed in, Walking Bear, did you have a quick question for Mr. Blackman?
Yes, I did. I have a question talking about global white supremacy. If black people came together and did what you suggest we all should do, what's to stop white supremacy from doing what they did to Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma, to any non-white country going on in the world right now, including Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq? We can do all the right things on our side, but if global white supremacy wants to say it's time to start a war because all the other things aren't working like it does in the United States, what are we supposed to do? We're still in the same position. You just got, you built up a nation or a community, and then global white supremacy came in there with their fighter jets and everything else. So we're still in the same
see, most of the fact is that every population center where white people live, they have a massive amount of African people. That's number one. This is all over Europe. Whether you're in France, whether you're in Britain, whether you're in the United States, there are always tons of African people. What we're simply saying is that it's not even a matter of what they can do to us militarily. Because you got to remember, when you're a soldier, your dignity comes from showing up on the battlefield. You're not even concerned about an outcome. What you're concerned about is being dignified and stopping an aggressor and dealing with your enemy. So what we have to do before we even analyze what white people might do is we must even find the will first to stand up and be the people that we are. Because you're going to die no matter what. The way they're killing us now doesn't make any sense. At least history will record that those people stood up and they offered resistance. Now, I have full confidence. See, it's not just a matter of just a political philosophy. I believe that the Creator is just, and I believe that when we stand up and do what we're supposed to do, we don't have to worry about them. We don't have to worry about them. You can't be polarized by fear, so that you don't even get started. You know what I mean? If we ain't even close to getting started where we need to be, so we can get started at what we need to do or focus on trying to build something, we would be a whole lot better off than we are today. You have generations that get martyred before people really pick up the struggle and actually, put all of the beams in the building and build the foundation or build the structure that they're trying to build. So we've had a lot of martyrs in the struggle, and a lot of people have suffered. So are we supposed to give up talking about without a guarantee of success we're not going to get started, or because white people are threatening? White people ain't changed. You know what I mean? And white people, listen, the bottom line is there's only so much they can do. They still got to live on this planet. We're all dependent on Mother Earth. There's only so much you can do. But really, the bombs that they drop are not their real power. Their power is the mind control that they have over African people. If we can get rid of that, that would be more powerful than the biggest bombs that they got. Okay? Because we're everywhere they are to be found. And like I said, they don't come straight. They come with a whole bunch of lies. What can you tell the people who you said you're lazy, you don't take care of your family, you don't take care of your community? If we say, okay, we want to reverse that. We don't need nothing from you. We're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to take care of our children. We're going to develop our ancestral homeland. How can you get mad at the people like that? I mean, what rhetoric could you use to try to stop them? And like I said, they could never be successful without us aiding them in their own destruction.
We have about a couple minutes left. Justice, if you had less folks on TalkShoe, press *8. Justice, did you have another question for Mr. Blackman?
Yes, I do. How does black people's victimization mentally impact our attempted families as well as our buying habits?
Well, when you're a victim, You take a look at the Montgomery bus boycott, where for a whole year we refused to ride the bus because we all know the Rosa Parks story, and we were trying to desegregate the bus lines and get some black employees with the Montgomery bus company. Our mistake was that instead of building our own independent transportation line, we went right back to white folks. As soon as they desegregated the bus, they desegregated the lunch counters, they allowed us to try on clothes in these places. We ran out of the black business district and rushed to empower white people to try to show them if they operate with some degree of humanity, their reward was they get to get all our money. As a result of that, we totally dismantled the black economic base. I mean, if you look at the Negro leagues in baseball and how as soon as Jackie Robinson crossed the color line, the Negro League was doomed. Even though we had great players, we were packing stadiums, we were doing our thing, but if white people just show us throw us a little bone of humanity where we'll acknowledge your humanity, we will support them economically. And as a result of that, we become a dependent people economically because we keep supporting people with the psychological conditioning from global white supremacy that says that if you will honor us by coming into our communities to do things that we should be doing for ourselves, we'll give you all our money. So that's one of the ways in which it impacts our buying habits. We are trying to buy acceptance. So when we go in there and we buy that $50,000 car, for that 10, 15 minutes that salesman is talking to you, you are being treated with all the humanity that you perceive, perceive that you don't receive. And as soon as he gets your money and you drive that vehicle, a few blocks away from the place and it depreciates in value, you walk away satisfied that somebody respected your humanity or had the illusion that you were just like any other white American, when in fact they just knew that you were a sucker and you needed to be played that way because you have such an inferiority complex that if white folks come and talk to you nice, they can get all your money.
Gus, can I ask another question, or?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if time will permit, but yeah, sure.
Oh, feel free.
Okay. Why did you want to help start the UNIA?
Well, because, like I said, it's a shame that we don't have any real organization that speaks beyond the national politics, or we need global consciousness as African people, because the same thing that's going on in the United States is going on all over the world. African people are repressed, suppressed, exploited, and still are facing the inability to properly understand all the technology that's coming after us. And that is not because we're stupid or we lack intelligence. It's because first, we haven't been trained to understand it, because if we knew our history, that's the training that you need. But in addition to that, you got to remember the black mind has not been wired in the last 500 years to solve African problems or black problems. It's been wired to try to get along in a society that essentially has been designed to keep you a victim, and a society that essentially is trying to train you to understand a pecking order that leads you to the conclusion that you should hate yourself and be actively engaged in destroying yourself.
How does the religion of white supremacy, Christianity, help to maintain the mental illness of black people?
Well, the biggest thing about Christianity is that, unfortunately, black people believe that God is white. Generally speaking, it takes an enormous effort to purge your mind of the images of this white Jesus, and it takes an enormous understanding of history and an honest assessment. See, it's very difficult for us to speak honestly about religion. The truth about the matter is that the overwhelming majority of African people, 99.9% of African people transported to the Western Hemisphere to become enslaved, were certainly not Christians. We converted to Christianity largely in the 1800s as part of the evangelical movement that was going on in this country that was aligned with abolition. But what we forget is that even the abolitionists did not believe in the genetic, in the equality of man. They just felt that the institution of slavery was wrong. This is why you have people like Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, people who formed the African Methodist Episcopal Church and the Amy Zion Church and all the black churches. When they were started because they still were experiencing discrimination. So don't get it twisted that because there was a few Christian abolitionists that meant that they were believed in the equality of Africans. They did not. They believed we weren't part of an inferior race. They just happened to believe that slavery was wrong. And this is important to understand. So we largely converted to Christianity because all during our experience we were told we had no soul. So really, religion really didn't even apply to us. We were nothing more than cattle. We were nothing more than chattel. So the bottom line was that toward the end of slavery, the white man came to us and he brought us the image of the white Jesus and said, this is God. As long as you accept the white image of Jesus as God, which most of us who are involved in Christianity subconsciously and consciously in some cases, because you still can go to grandma's house in a lot of cases and you see the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus. As long as you worship at the feet of the white man, then whatever, if God is white and all the angels are white and everybody associated with the religious hierarchy are white, then of course white people have been favored by God, and even if they exploited us in slavery, it's really no big deal because God is a white man. So, I mean, a lot of us really actually believe that, and that's why we should all be against all kinds of physical representations of divine because they are really, really divisive, especially in the African mind. African people are very colorful and very visual, and that's why things like TV and propaganda that comes through the eyes and the ears is very effective with us. Very effective. Communication and technology and communication has been directed at absolutely destroying us because, like I said, we really respond to things that we see and we really respond to things that we hear. So they know that about us, and that's why we get a constant dose of the white Jesus. Even if they're not talking about religion, they set the white man always up as your savior. The white man is always your savior, the great white father. In the minds of black women, if you need a job, it's the white man who gives it to you. If you need welfare to take care of your children, it's the white man who gives it to you. So we are all psychologically messed up with the image indoctrination that we got when we were converted to Christianity.
Thank you so much for answering my questions. I don't have any more questions for you. But, yeah, thank you very much. And I guess I hope we can have you back on the program.
I'd be happy to do that anytime. I mean, this is what I love to do. This is what I'm here to do. I want to do as much as I can to try to expand the thinking, expand the dialogue in the minds of African people about their condition, because we really need to really be focused on it, if not for ourselves, for our children.
I wanted to check really quick. I was going to ask one final question, unless anybody that's listening at TalkShoe, *8 if you had a question, *8. Lots of folks on the phone line. I guess they are just listening, which I guess is fine. But if you have questions, I could have got you all. Question I'll ask: you talk about solutions in your book towards the destruction of a nigger mentality. Can you give us some suggestions on ways that, because I think all non-white people, all black people are suffering from this nigger mentality, and we just have to work to correct that. Can you give some suggestions on how to destroy that nigger mentality?
Well, we should. One of the things we should do is we should be very, very careful about how we judge our own people. We should judge our people in the context of what they have been trained to do. You know, I don't spend a lot of time hating niggers or people who I consider to be haters of self and kind. I try to analyze their behavior and understand the context of why they do the things that they do. It's more important to understand so that you'll be able to help people correct their behavior, because it's not about arguing or labeling people in a way that says, okay, that person's a nigger, never to be resurrected. That person is really just like me, unenlightened. So once my job is to go out and enlighten as many folks as possible, because we have to discuss the matter with each other as lovingly as possible, and with an understanding that we are trying to move toward a resolution and we're trying to move toward a solution. So we have to try to unite with all black people on even the simplest levels. One of the things I advocate that we do is we try to be as polite as possible, as respectful as possible to each other, that we try to operate with a basic sense of ethics so that we are not participating with the attitude that everybody exploits black people, let me now exploit my own people. So we should try to be as ethical as possible. We don't have any real revolutionary hope. And when I say revolution, I mean going from powerlessness to power is what revolution is really all about. We can't get to any power unless we're going to have loving feelings about who we are and project those loving feelings onto those who look like us. So we have to start with love. We have to start with ethics. We have to start with an attitude that says, I'm looking to try to establish some functional unity with my people. If we can't take on big projects, let's take on small projects. But what we have to do is try to raise the consciousness. We have to try to spend less time watching the idiot box and being engaged in the escapist entertainment, and try to spend more time with the history books and trying to really understand some of the messages of some of our greatest minds. People like, Dr. John Henry Clark, Amos Wilson, Marcus Garvey, all these Malcolm X, all these Martin Luther King, all these people who left great legacies in terms of thinking. We have to become more of a thinking people again, because, like I said, you can't run away from your problems. You must stop and confront them. And if we confront our problems, we certainly have solutions to these problems. Our situation is far from hopeless. Despite everything that they have done to us, they have hit us with AIDS, they've hit us with crack, they've hit us with everything they can, and we still are here, and we still have an opportunity to rally towards some kind of resurrection of our condition globally as a people. But what we have to do is we have to keep it real with ourselves and understand that there's a lot of work to be done, and we have to work with those right around us. Start with your family. Start with those near and dear. Keep the dialogue going. Foster the dialogue. Organize yourself. Do anything you can. Small organizations. Sisters get together. Brothers get together. Get together with each other. Work on the youth. Manhood training, sisterhood training, these kinds of things, teaching the children economics. This is very, very important. So these are all the kinds of things that we should all be engaged in, because we need to be workers. We can't just be theorists, and we can't just sit around analyzing what the problem has been. We can't be, stuck in paralysis from analysis. And we have to, most importantly, divorce ourselves from meaningless efforts that really just distract us. We get all caught up into this political process. You know what I mean? We elect a black guy who's essentially acting as a puppet for every white supremacy agenda you can just about find. It's no surprise to me that the first country they get him to attack is an African country with a leader who was the most charitable to all of black Africa. How they got that off, I don't even know. But the bottom line is, like I said, we know that the guy in front don't really call the shots, and so we have to stop having the attitude that somebody else is going to do this. I'm telling you, if we who understand a little better than the others don't do this work, it's not going to get done. We have to do this work. We have to get out there and get this message out there. Like I said, we're all united. We just need to organize. You have to organize where you are in Texas. I have to organize where I am in New York. We have to try to build some, and because, like I said, the issues are all the same everywhere. We all agree on it, and we have to be doing something. Because remember, our dignity is only going to come from showing up on the battlefield to do something. We can't stand around and be spectators and hope that things are going to change. We have to be the change makers.
The book, if you would like to get more information, you can go to the website, NubianDirections.com. The book, again, Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality. Real pleasure to have him on the program. If you have anything you'd like to share with listeners before closing out, feel free, Mr. Blackman.
Well, I just want to say to the listeners that I'm always encouraged by the fact that there are minds that are listening, that understand what we're saying, and are galvanized or excited by hearing these kinds of conversations. And like I said, we should try to have these kinds of dialogues as much as possible. And you should understand that you are certainly not alone. Everywhere I go and have spoken, I'm always speaking really primarily to the choir, even though they might find my expression of some of these ideas to be somewhat unique. this is how we really all feel. If we commiserate more with each other about what's really going on, we can get to some kind of resolution. We have to talk about these problems. We cannot escape them. We can't walk around this country like everything is fine or it's just about my individual situation. We have to think about what's going on with the collective. And always remember that our best people are concerned about the collective condition that affects all of us. So I want everybody to keep that in mind, and I want to thank you for listening. And like I said, I can be reached at 646-755-1651. That's 646-755-1651. And let's continue to encourage this brother to do these kinds of shows because this is needed everywhere.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, real pleasure to have him on the program, Mr. C.C. Blackman. We definitely would love to have you on the program again if you think it would be a constructive investment of your time and energy. I know listeners would appreciate the opportunity to hear more about your book and your views on how to solve this problem.
Not a problem. Call me anytime. We'll set something up.
Will do. Thank you so much, and we will be in touch. Please enjoy the rest of your evening and keep up the fantastic and much-needed work.
And thank you. God bless. Black Power.
Good evening, sir.
Good night.
Bye.
Context of White Supremacy, Mr. C.C. Blackman. Suggestions, I told folks, make suggestions. Use Facebook as a weapon. Somebody put some of Mr. Blackman's videos on my Facebook page, and that was just a couple days ago. It didn't take too much time. The Facebook page, facebook.com/the problem is white people. I will add you. You can make a friend request. And people tend to post constructive information on racism, white supremacy. That's how I found out about Mr. C.C. Blackman and his book, Towards the Destruction of a Nigger Mentality. I thought it was just so no coincidences, no accidents when he said that a part of that nigger mentality is black people getting excited when a white person throws us a bone. And that is nigger. The Dam Busters, I mean, right on point, which is exactly what white people want. That's the way they want us to behave. They're little companions to help maintain the system of white supremacy. One thing I'll say, we'll take a quick commercial break, and then Justice, if she has a news report, we'll have news. Dr. Cambon, he sent us an assignment. It is a clip on racism, white supremacy that he wanted us to listen to and pick out the details. So we'll do the commercial. Justice will do news. I have news too, so we'll have 2 news reports, and then we have an audio clip from Dr. Cambon. But before all that, I did want to say we're fundraising. Invest if you think the program is constructive. Link should be in the program. You can also invest. Visit Justice's blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com. Her PayPal link is on her blog page. You'll hear the address again in the commercial. Invest if you think the program is constructive. And you can share. That's really helpful, sharing links so that other people know about the program if you think it would benefit non-white people, black people, to hear this information. But before we get to the commercial, I think it was mentioned, and I'm not saying anything was incorrect about the question, not at all. And it's not anything is incorrect with the caller either. I'm just saying that I think black people having any sort of argument or debate around whether, red, black, and green is a flag or a banner, that, at least for me, has got to be nigger mentality. I just do not see any constructive value to that at all. And I think Mr. Blackman, he said, at the end of the day, what are you going to do with it? What problem is this flag going to help you solve? How is this flag going to protect you, or banner? That just it was painful to know that is a heated discussion or topic amongst. Wow, that's painful. I need a commercial to recuperate. Context of White Supremacy. We'll be right back.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas to Europe to Australia to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? Counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hello everybody, welcome to the couch. This is Justice here at TalkShoe. If you want to learn, listen, understand a question, go to TalkShoe.com. And in the search box, type in Context of White Supremacy. And then click the second box down below. And then it'll take you right to it. For more information on racism and white supremacy, go to my blog, justdojustice.today.blogspot.com. And my email address is justice.rwswj@gmail.com. Replace white supremacy with justice, ASAP. You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn. Alone among God's primates, he kills for sport, or lust, or greed. Yea, he will murder his brother to possess his brother's land. Let him not breed in great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home and yours. Shun him, for he is the harbinger of death.
Context of White Supremacy. Planet of the Apes. I said I could talk about Planet of the Apes for days. He mentioned that white people, they had the weapons to destroy the planet several times over, and he said that they have illusions. They're illusions of control, controlling our minds, so that we suffer from that mental illness, nigger mentality, white identification, all of that helps, that is needed to help maintain the system of white supremacy. That is, man, they have a brilliant demonstration of this in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which is the second film in the series, where you have a group of people, mostly white. There's one black person who is killed in the film, but it's mostly white people. And they say verbatim, we don't really have any power. We just have the illusion of power. And one of their illusions is that they make the people that they're mistreating harm each other. consistently. And they say that, like, we don't harm anybody. You do the harming, like, right in Planet of the Apes. Excuse me, in Beneath the Planet of the Apes. The second thing, white people, because he said about white people and them having the ability to destroy the planet, that is in Planet of the Apes, and there are other examples of white people saying we are willing to harm ourselves. Even, if other white people are going to get hurt, that's okay, as long as we get to harm and stomp on some non-white people. The record shows this, unfortunately, and this is in Planet of the Apes. We're willing to blow up the whole planet. If white supremacy is ever challenged. Michael Bradley said the exact same thing when he was on the program. You can go back in the archives, May 2009. He said exactly, Planet of the Apes. White people would blow the planet up before they see the system of white supremacy end. So I do think, keep that in mind. These folks are very serious, and just keep that in mind. At any rate, Justice, if you have a news article, we would love to hear it.
Yes, I do have a news report. This one was from racismdaily.com. It was posted on June 14th, which is today. Yep, today of this year, and the title is New. Did you say something, or is it just me?
I'm sorry. I'm muting my line. I didn't say anything, though.
Oh, okay. The title is New York Police Increasingly Targeting Non-Whites, Say Rights Organizations. The New York Police Department, NYPD, last week reported that it had stopped and frisked, I don't know how to read this number, but, and frisked 183,326 New Yorkers within the first quarter of 2011. Of this number, 161,000, or 89% of those stopped were innocent. This is a 22% increase over the number of stop and frisks recorded for the first quarter of 2010. The numbers have astonished civil liberties organizations such as the New York Civil Liberties Union, not only because they are higher than any other 3-month period in the history of the NYPD's data collecting years, but also because 84% of those stopped were either black or Latino. The NYPD is turning black and brown neighborhoods across New York City in Constitution-free zones, said Donna Lieberman, the executive director of the NYCLU, in a press release. A trip to the corner store should not have to include the assumption that you'll have to explain yourself to the police, but that is a troubling reality for residents in predominantly black and Latino neighborhoods. Police argue that stop and frisk practices are necessary for fighting crime. This is proven law enforcement tactic to fight and deter crime. One that is authorized by criminal procedure law, said Commissioner Raymond Kelly of the New York Police Department, speaking to MSNBC. As for the disproportionately high number of blacks and Latinos that were subjected to stop and frisk, police say it has more to do with the high crime neighborhoods than race. The initial defense was because we're over-policing higher crime neighborhoods. They're predominantly populated by people of color, non-white people, and that's why, said Peter Bibbering, Bibbering, I don't know, an ACLU attorney in Los Angeles. In an interview with MSNBC, research performed by the RAND Corporation. I suspect the RAND, or RAND, is a acronym. Commissioned by the NYPD in 2007, seems to confirm this conclusion. The report cautions against the interpretation of the data as it appeared, stating that there are confounding factors that must be taken into account. A 2008 ACLU document showed that when experts controlled for confounding factors such as neighborhood crime rates, people of color, non-white people, so far they have said people of color twice in this article, were still disproportionately affected. Not only are innocent citizens being racially profiled and subjected to public humiliation, As a result of stop and frisk incidents, the practice also places an economic burden on police departments, argue critics of the practice. A good deal of time and resources are being wasted on stopping and interrogating innocent citizens, which could be going towards stopping more serious crimes. In response to the released numbers, the ACLU has initiated an educational campaign to let citizens know of their rights. Palm-sized fact sheets all tell citizens to remain silent and not tell the police anything about their name and address without the presence of a lawyer. That is the end of the article. There's one source at the bottom. You can share it. That's about it.
They gave part of their codification for dealing with racism, white supremacy from enforcement officers. Codify what you say. Say very little. Name, address, nothing else. Codification with words. I mean, standard. If you more information on this, I mean, this is standard. This really doesn't even, in my opinion, qualify as, quote unquote news. This is standard operating procedure under the system of white supremacy. I'm hoping Dr. Wintersmith will be able to have him on the program later this month, and he'll confirm what I just said. This is not news. This is standard operating procedure. Enforcement officers, I think the acronym that Umar Abdullah Johnson used, laws, the legal arm of white supremacy. This sort of thing is the enforcement of the legal arm of white supremacy. If you want more information on this, Graham A. Raymond, he is a journalist in New York. He covered a story about racism, white supremacy in New York. Exact same thing, stop and frisks. He was on the program. I think it was something astronomical. White supremacy, nothing but racism, white supremacy. He was on the program in June of 2010. And we also had Steve Silverman of flexyourrights.org. It's flexyourrights.org. He was on the program in July of 2010. Excellent information. They do documentary films on the correct way of dealing with contact with enforcement officers. They have vignettes, what to do, what not to do if you're in your car, if the enforcement officers come to your home, what to say, what not to say. Very constructive information. You can watch these videos online. They're at YouTube. Flexyourrights.org. You can go to the website. Lots of very constructive information. And the gentleman, the founder, president of that organization, Steve Silverman, he was on the program in July of 2010. But this is, standard operating procedure under racism, white supremacy. You expect this as long as the system exists. Those are my thoughts. Do you have any thoughts on that, Justice?
Nope.
Okay, I will. Did you have any other thoughts you wanted to share? Anything else?
Nope, I don't think so. No.
Okie dokie. I'll get in a news report. And then, as I said, we got an assignment from Dr. Cambon. He sent me an audio clip. I remembered he is a professor. I forgot about that until I got the assignment. I was like, oh, that's right. He was a college professor. So we have homework from him. But before we get to that, my news report for the day. Someone mailed this to me, and I'm sharing. This is from BleacherReport.com. BleacherReport.com, and on the page, this is under swagger. I thought that was noteworthy. This the title is Dirk Nowitzki, girlfriend Jessica Olsen helps Dirk destroy evil empire in Miami. Now, just that title alone says, a lot. LeBron James and other black males have become an evil empire that needed to be destroyed. Anyway, the report. Jessica Olsen, who is pictured here, a black female. Jessica Olsen is Maverick's secret weapon as Dirk Nowitzki's girlfriend. The Dallas Mavericks have the title. A week ago, we would have greeted that news with bugged out eyes and a fully dropped jaw to the floor. The same could be said about Dirk Nowitzki. We all tagged him as the softest thing to come out of Europe since Brie cheese. Nowitzki didn't back away from challenges. He folded and then found the nearest cave to hide in. All of that has changed. His image and late game acumen. Dirk is no longer synonymous with choking. We can now consider the man, a hardened champion. So what gives? How did this guy go from Clark Kent to Superman in no seconds flat? I will forego the basketball analysis for the more intriguing theory. Nothing beats the love of a good woman. Nowitzki traded in a nut job. His last fling tried to keep him close by faking a pregnancy for a genuine hottie. Jessica Olsen is the sultry Swede. Sweden again, Yalo Mamadou, Sweden. That's come up on the program several times. France Kebro, that has stood by her man all playoffs. That is better than any good luck charm. There is still not a whole lot known about Miss Olsen. She can be seen in the above photo taken by World Red Eye. They have a bunch of Mavericks celebration pics here. So it may not be very scientific, not much of what I write ever is, but it is a sexy hypothesis. And really, what more do you want on a Monday? That's interesting. I know that's another code word they've used for black people, niggers specifically, Monday. Olsen was the key to the Dirk Nowitzki revival. Only a woman can make a man feel fresh and new. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. This is, again, titled Dirk Nowitzki Girlfriend. Jessica Olsen helps Dirk destroy evil empire in Miami. And if you check, there are a lot of images of, this female online, so you can check to see if you think this is a black person. As well, if you put her name in, there are a lot of reports of people with similar articles saying that, they think this black female, Jessica Olsen, was key to turning things around and helping, Dirk Nowitzki get himself together so the man could win a championship. Reminded me of Monsters Ball, splitting some dark oak, and you're not really a man tell you split some dark oak, Dr. Welsing moment. The whole article basically is a Dr. Welsing moment, but you can check that out online. Someone mailed it to me. Again, if you want credit, I have no problem giving out credit. Just let me know, and I will give our name or whatever you like if you send me something constructive to share. With that, Dr. Kanban also gave me information to share. This is an audio clip from NPR, and it's recent. It was just this week on NPR. Dr. Anthony Yoon, I think I'm saying his name correctly, Dr. Anthony Yoon, non-white, so-called Asian male, and he has a new book out. He's a doctor, cosmetic surgeon. He was on NPR, and racism, white supremacy, of course, became a part of the topic. Dr. Kanban, he told me to check this out. He said there are, I think he said two significant things that stood out in this clip. I took notes and I wrote down about 5 or 6 things, so I'm sure there's a lot. I'll play it, and then we should have a few minutes left. I'll check the phone lines and see, what you all have to say about this clip. But this is on NPR. I can get you the date once it's finished. It's about 13 minutes, and then I will hit the phone lines. Press star 8 if you would like to share your thoughts on this clip. Here we go.
I'm Michelle Martin, and this is Tell Me More from NPR News. Coming up, you ever see somebody doing something messed up, and you say to yourself, boy, I wish I had a camera now. Me too. But what about the problems you can't photograph? That's my Can I Just Tell You commentary, and it's coming up. But first, you might have seen him on Rachel Ray or one of a number of other shows where he is a soothing and cheerful evangelist of the transformative power of surgery and other cosmetic treatments. His name is Anthony Yoon, and he is a board-certified plastic surgeon who has both a thriving medical practice and a career as a medical commentator.
You look at this and you say, well, what the heck is this thing? I mean, it looks like the tentacles of Dr. Octopus combined with something, yeah, something from the movie Aliens or something, but this is actually a very impressive machine.
Again, that's Dr. Anthony Yoon on Rachel Ray. The road to getting to that point, however, was not nearly as smooth as Dr. Yoon's television delivery. It was a road filled with late and lonely nights, sleep deprivation, and much hard work, fueled in part by the need to make his hard-driving immigrant father proud. And you might not think this would make for a very funny story, but somehow he has turned it into a laugh riot. It's Dr. Anthony Yoon's new memoir. It's called In Stitches, and he's with us now. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Michelle.
So you start by talking about your early life. You were raised in Greenville, Michigan, which you describe as population 7,945, of which 7,941 were white. This was not exactly a recipe for social success. And to add to all of this, when you started getting bigger growing up, you developed this massive jaw that just stuck out, and you even gave it its own name. You called it Jawzilla. And I thought you were going to say that this was what drew you to plastic surgery, but it turns out that that isn't true.
Well, I think it was the start of my transformation, and I think I, like a lot of people growing up, felt like an outsider. And initially it was that kind of story of the Asian American kid in the middle of small town, middle America, where everybody around me was Caucasian. I felt inside like I was like everybody else, but on the outside I wasn't. And then unfortunately, as I went through high school, my jaw started growing bigger and bigger to the point it was literally twice the size of Jay Leno's jaw.
Did you ever figure out why that happened?
I had a lot of dentists and orthodontists. They all had their own ideas. Was it the braces weren't put on correctly? Was it because I sucked my thumb till I was 7 years old? I think in the end it was just one of those crazy things that happens. You know, sometimes people are born with 6 fingers and 6 toes. And for me, I developed this massive jaw.
But you were able to, or your parents were able to, get this fixed for you. Is that in part what got you on the road to being interested in being a doctor?
Yeah, and for me, that was the first time that I really understood how changing your appearance can really change your life. The funny thing was before I had the surgery, I mean, I was a skinny little nerd with big glasses, this big jaw. I couldn't find a date really to save my life, and I was going to go to college. And what do you think about college? You think it's time for you to have fun, to date. And so this, for me, was hopefully going to be that transforming event that would make me into a ladies' man, an Adonis.
Well, I do want to talk a little bit about the culture shock piece, because you really lay that out there. There's one passage I just have to read, even after 4 years of celibacy. Why don't we just admit it? You did go to medical school. And you write that when you got to your dorm, the smell of Thai food hit you like tear gas. And then you notice the students. I'm going to read a passage from the book. You say, Asians, every one of them, they see me and smile happily, welcoming me like I'm their long-lost cousin. What kind of place is this? I prowl the halls in search of Caucasians. I see none, not one. I'm only asking for one lousy non-Asian, one. I know I look like I belong. I look like I fit in, but I don't. I'm an American in a Korean person's body. Now, you know, if a white person wrote that, people would be, like, all up in arms. But, like, what's up with that? What's up with that?
Well, I think it's the whole clash of cultures. You know, my dad grew up on a tiny town in the middle of Korea, where he was the one he was supposed to go to America, become a doctor, and pull his family out of poverty. So all he knew growing up was that doctor equals success. And that's what he instilled in me, and he wanted to instill into his kids. But you compare that to the surroundings around you, where everything is do what makes you happy. So now I go into medical school, and here I am now completely the exact opposite of what I'm used to. Now all of a sudden I fit in with everybody else on the outside, but not necessarily quite on the inside. And so it definitely is a learning experience as I went through medical school, as I think a lot of people finding yourself.
So your father was an OBGYN, was practicing in Michigan, and as you mentioned, grew up very, very poor, in a small farm in Korea, lots of kids, a lot of deprivation. He really literally pulled himself up by kind of his fingernails.
It was basically 7 kids, a dozen chickens, a pig, and my dad was the one that they saved all their money for to push him through college and medical school. So he literally pulled his entire family, all of his brothers and sisters, out of poverty. And so for him, happiness wasn't anything at all a consideration. It was all pure survival. And I think what happens with a lot of the Asian Americans is that they are so focused on our work ethic, because a work ethic can achieve those types of degrees that will guarantee you a good living, whether it's an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. That was all he knew. When I was young, he said, you're not going to date somebody until after you're a doctor.
If you're just joining us, this is Tell Me More from NPR News. We're speaking with Dr. Anthony Yoon. You might recognize that name and his voice from some of his appearances on shows like Rachel Ray and The Doctors. We're talking about his new memoir. It's called In Stitches. And it is actually very funny. It does leave you in stitches. I assume that was a play on words. But I do have to talk about the motivation for going to medical school. You make it very clear that it really wasn't even really considered an option. Your father was going to do whatever it took to steer you toward being a doctor. And you tell this very funny scene at the beginning of the book, which you couldn't possibly know about since you were just born, about how he was standing over you saying, well, you know, he could be a vascular surgeon. And your mom saying, give him a week. He's a week old. Give him a minute. But that you really were steered in this direction from the beginning. But you say that you really went to medical school because you were hoping to get, forgive me, parents, you were hoping to get laid.
Yeah, well, you know, there are a lot of reasons. Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of reasons why we become doctors. My dad, when I grew up, he'd say vascular surgeon, cardiothoracic surgeon, all these intense surgical specialties, and it's just not me. But I was that guy, the kid that didn't want to rock the boat. So next thing I know, I find myself going into medical school. And honestly, for some doctors, you know, we like people to think that we are doctors only to help people. But if that was the case, we'd be social workers, we would be nurses aides, you know, we'd be teachers. We're doctors because we want to help people, but also because we want to help ourselves. I became a doctor because, number one, I wanted to help people. But number two, I wanted to make my parents proud of me. Number three, I wanted to get my dad off my back. And number four, I thought this may be a chance for me. 4 years college, not a single girlfriend. This may be a chance for me to elevate my stay and to actually find somebody who's interested in me.
But I must say the picture you present of the profession is not pretty at all. You describe, for example, during one of your clinical rotations, your first rotation in internal medicine, you're paired with somebody, was she the chief resident?
Actually an intern.
The intern, Nancy, who is abusive to you, is nasty to the patients. She uses demeaning acronyms to describe patients, like one being Gomer, as in get out of my emergency room. You're saying that a lot of the people who are making these judgments are making them based on very superficial evaluations of who they are and whether they are inconvenient to them. How should we feel about this?
The first thing is a lot of doctors they take this, the quote, doctor's orders, unfortunately, too literally. You know, it's not a suggestion or a favor, it's an order. And so we take this whole power that we have to our heads. And one of the reasons why I wrote my book was to try to expose why this happens and to really expose the secret insecurities that we have as doctors. And then the second thing that you read in the book is just the whole process of becoming a doctor is painful, and we get hazed, and a lot of doctors get bitter after these 36 hours working straight.
You come across as a very appealing person, a very kind person, if you don't mind my saying so. But the fact is you are describing a situation where these people, doctors who are given a great deal of deference in our society, we're debating now about how healthcare should be delivered, and you're describing a lot of people who are selfish, status-obsessed, money-obsessed, and really very indifferent to the well-being of the people who they are supposed to be charged with taking care of. And I'm asking you again, what should we do about this?
Well, the thing we need to do is make sure we talk to our physicians. And I think as far as, hospital administrators, they have power. As a patient, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is if you meet a doctor who has this Dr. God complex, they're not spending time with you, they're not treating the way you should, then you have to find a different doctor. I mean, we have the right to do that here in the United States. The good thing is there are changes being made, actually, in the medical system now that hopefully will decrease this whole Dr. God complex. And it's changes in resident work hours. When I went through residency, we worked 36 hours straight without an ounce of sleep. Now, actually, the ACGME is decreasing work hours to about 16 hours, which is still a long shift, but it's no 36 hours. And they're also looking at doctors differently, when they're entering medical school. They're looking at more well-roundedness of the students versus just the MCAT scores. Even hopefully doctors can read the book and get some insight into their own pathology.
You did eventually end up in plastic surgery, and you say it really wasn't because of the jaw surgery that you had, although you could see where it was such a transforming experience that it might be. Actually, it was something else. Would you talk about that? Why you decided to go into plastic surgery?
Yeah, I kind of went through medical school unsure what I wanted to do because I just found myself there because that was what I thought I should have done. And one day I saw this little baby that came in, a 9-month-old baby that was mauled by a raccoon. I mean, it was, even now I've been in practice 8 years and I've never seen anything this horrifying. And to see the plastic surgeon come in and actually explain how he's going to try to reconstruct this baby's face, to me, was transforming.
You thought, I really can do this. This is something that I can do.
Yes, and for me, I've always been a bit of an artist, and in the book I talk about how I was addicted to comic books growing up and a cartoonist, and this has been the one field for me that made complete sense. I can have 1 foot in art and 1 foot in medicine, and hopefully really change the lives of my patients.
But what do you say to those who look at your field, and no disrespect, but the way you practice it as part of what's wrong with the way medical care is delivered in this country, in the sense, your website, celebcosmeticsurgery.com, kind of promoting these procedures and techniques for people who may or may not really even need them. There are people who say, gee, is that really where our resources should go? What do you say to that?
Number one, we have to look at it responsibly. There are a lot of cosmetic surgeons out there that are basically arrogant, money-grubbing jerks. And one of the reasons why I wrote the book was to try to expose that we're not all like that. So that's one of the things. Number two, I think there are procedures that are cosmetic that we perform that really transform and change people's lives. Whether it's the first story in my book, this young kid, a 14-year-old kid, literally a guy who had breasts that were double, triple D in size, and how having that surgery really changed his life. So there's that part of surgery where you literally will change how somebody looks and improve their quality of their life. But at the same time, I am the first person to step out and say, look, I am not for teenagers having breast augmentation for graduation or for a reality star to have 10 plastic surgeries in one day. So really, I think it comes down to responsibility. Plastic surgery is not for everybody.
What does your dad think now, if you don't mind my asking? What does he think about what you've done?
I was deathly afraid of showing my dad this book. And so I waited, and he called me, and he said something I thought was very poignant. He said, Tony, it doesn't matter how I'm portrayed in this book. What matters is that you achieve something that is beyond what anything we've ever done. He said, I look at myself as a stepping stone. I'm the one who kneels in the dirty water of the river to allow my children to step over me to reach the other side. And that's the life, I think, of a lot of first-generation immigrants who come to this country. It's all about their kids.
Dr. Anthony Yoon is a board-certified plastic surgeon. His new memoir is called In Stitches. You may have seen him on The Rachel Ray Show, where he's a regular guest. He's also appeared on Dr. 90210 and CNN and other outlets. And he joined us from Ferndale, Michigan. Dr. Yoon, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, Dr. Anthony Yoon, he was just on NPR. I believe this is June 13th, very recent. He was just on NPR. You can go there and listen, download it if you like. But Dr. Cambon sent this to me. I will give a quick thought, and then anyone, if you are listening in and you would like to share your thoughts, you can press *8 on TalkShoe, and I'll open the lines up. My quick thoughts: racism, white supremacy, all over this. Number one, sex. I mean, cowbells would be ringing if Dr. Yoon is married. I highly suspect he's married to a white person, white identification. Actually, I was thinking a lot of what he's saying, the things that he's saying, this suggests someone who is suffering from what our guest labels the nigger mentality. He didn't want any contact with non-white people. Said he was horrified to be around all Asian people. Where are the white people? Nigger mentality. Godzilla, that was horrific to hear him associating himself with Godzilla. It reminded me of if a black person, was calling themselves Kong. Like, it was just, that was tough to hear. Especially him saying, he's the only non-white person growing up in the town. It had to be terrible to be surrounded by racists growing up and having to tease you. Gosh. Anyway, that word transformative, I thought that was very interesting. He used it to describe his own corrective surgery with his jaw, and then he used it frequently to talk about what they call cosmetic surgery. Transformed. I thought that was very interesting, the way you can use words to manipulate and control the way we think about things. The white woman he was referencing, who was using the acronym GOMER, Get Out of My Emergency Room, and how degrading that this doctor is being someone who's supposed to be healing. This white woman and many others, these folks gotta be racist. If this is the way she's behaving, she has got to have total contempt for black people, non-white people. I'd be interested in having this guy on the program. Dr. God, he said that the God complex, and that is white through and through. Associating the white lab coat, I think you associate the nurse wearing white with the cross. Everything about it is white Jesus almost. And in fact, I would even assert that his story seems to be the transformation, the inclusion, becoming white, becoming a doctor, becoming, immersed in white people. And I would suspect literally, white identification. I would be interested in having this guy on the program. I think that would be constructive. I'll hit the phone lines. We'll do 5 minutes, so people will have to be concise if they have anything they would like to share. *8 on TalkShoe if you have any comments on the report. *8, and I can open the lines up. I can also check Free HD. Let's see. Not seeing any hands. Hope my switchboard is working correctly. I know it was working before I did see hands go up. Maybe people don't have thoughts on the article. I thought it was quite interesting. Like I said, I would be interested in having him on the program. He seems like someone who is suffering from white identification. Oh, okay, we do. It is working. *8, that's what to press. Lady B. Moore, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, I pretty much noticed the same things you did as far as the notes. But I did feel like, as far as when he was saying that he was an Asian kid surrounded by whites when he was growing up, he felt the same on the inside but not on the out. And then when he went to medical school, he was, looking for whites. He didn't fit in with the non-white so-called Asians, but, he's Asian. He felt that he was more American, so in that aspect, he doesn't fit in on the inside, but on the outside, he looks just like them. So that was it's just like, in the system of white supremacy, non-whites do not fit in anywhere, whether they're surrounded with people that look like them. They just, like you said, flock to white people. We want to be around them. We want to be their protectors. I just feel like we've been conditioned to be like that. So that's all I want to say. That's major.
We've been groomed. I think that whole article, it just shows the power of whiteness. I think just everything about being a doctor and what the labels, the associations that being a doctor carries is, I think, immersed in racism, white supremacy, the white lab coat, the nurses in white, just everything about it. Frequently they didn't even allow black people to, be quote unquote doctors. So, I think it's a lot of white supremacy on many levels.
Right. And another thing I was going to say also, I had a news article yesterday. Did you hear anything about a racial hoax that had anything to do with McDonald's? I was going to read it yesterday, but I guess we didn't have time. But today he talked about McDonald's, and I thought about I have the article right here in front of me.
Can you give me 1 second to I want to hear that. If you can give me 1 second, I wanted to get Pam's hand. Okay. Pam, I got your hand.
Hi,
Pam.
good evening.
Good evening. Always good to hear from you.
Oh, good to hear. Just good to hear the show. I agree with you. I think he had such a strong white identification. When he talked about getting laid, I automatically assumed he probably wanted to, was looking at, had crushes or desired white women, white girls, and he was just very strongly white identified. And he glossed over the stuff that he really went through, but I'm sure if in his private moments, if he's able to think on that level, that he was greatly mistreated. So he just reminded me of a very successful victim.
That's an oxymoron, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, financially successful. Well, I mean, he obviously become a doctor, but I just heard victim. Yeah.
A lot of victimization.
Yeah. And I wonder. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say I want to get him on the program. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I wonder what stories he could tell about the way that black people were treated when they came into the emergency room or came into the hospital. I would, I'd love to, hear what he would have to, if he was going to be honest, what he would say about that. And that was pretty much it.
Let's see if I can get his information. I thought that was Dr. Cambon is on his assignment as usual. I can just make this a sound clip. That's what I'll do. I'll make this a sound clip so that way he'll have everybody's comments. It'll be recorded. Okie doke. Connecticut, did you have any thoughts? Your lines are still open. Connecticut, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. It actually brings another interesting effect of this whole white supremacy notion, because you see Asians, and you see the fact that his father was striving for him to be successful, and he became quote unquote successful. But you have the Tiger Mom, the Amy Child, and then there was another article written by this Asian gentleman talking about the effect of all this high achievement amongst Asians and how a lot of Asian men are not being able to find, not having sex. They're having sex later in life. So you just see how white supremacy works for groups that are perceived to be achieving economically, but their whole identity crisis is so mixed up that, they have a high rate of interracial, marriage amongst the men and the women, so it just brings in that another point that even if you are achieving all this quote-unquote economic success, white supremacy is still so powerful that you would think they would have this want to be with their own, but in fact, they want to, they want to identify more with Caucasians or white. So, that's just another example, of the power of white supremacy that you have all these, so-called Asian men, non-whites who are pursuing this white identity,
I agree. I would remind folks again, I think that is, I'm a black male. I could be lying, so, but I am a black male. But, I am in an area of the world where there are a lot of non-black, non-white people. And I have had a lot of dialogue about white supremacy. So the way I speak about it has been, influenced by that, and I've learned a lot, like hearing those sorts of stories and just seeing how another group of people, how they're impacted by white supremacy, a group that you would think, oh, they're doing a lot better. They don't have, these sorts of problems, and to hear like how ugly it is even for them. They're quote unquote successful, it revealed a lot. It revealed a lot about white supremacy. I think that's why Dr. Kanban mailed it in the first place. Let's see. Anybody else on TalkShoot? Anybody else, if they had comments on this particular report on NPR? It's Dr. Anthony Yoon and his book. It's Stitches. That's the name of his book. I'm going to see if we can get him on the program. I don't see any more hands. We can get that McDonald's report. I'm very interested to hear about this. If I don't see any more, *8. That's what you press. Okay, they took too long. Let's hear the report on the McDonald's hoax.
Okay, so I was actually checking my email yesterday, and so this was posted 6/13 from Yahoo News, and the headline is "Racial Hoax Causes PR Headache for McDonald's," and I assume PR means like public relations. It has a picture. It looks like it's from like the McDonald's Corporation. It says, "Please note, as an insurance measure due in part to a recent string of robberies, non-white, blacks," which it says African American customers are now required to pay an additional fee of $1.50 per transaction. I'll read that again. As an insurance measure due in part to a recent string of robberies, African American customers are now required to pay an additional fee of $1.50 per transaction. An online hoax that falsely suggests McDonald's discriminates against African American customers is causing a PR headache for the Golden Arches. Over the weekend, the photograph above circulated widely on the Internet. The image shows what looks like an official McDonald's notice in the window of a restaurant telling customers that blacks will be charged $1.50 extra as an insurance measure due in part to a recent string of robberies. Many Internet users retweeted the photo using the words, "Seriously, McDonald's?" to express their disapproval of the burger chain. In response, McDonald's sent a tweet of its own on Saturday. "That pic is a senseless and ignorant hoax. Mickey D's values all of our customers. Diversity runs deep in our culture on both sides of the counter." But that clearly wasn't enough to clear things up, because Twitter users continue to send out the picture with that same message of condemnation. "Seriously, McDonald's?" Indeed, so many people sent "Seriously, McDonald's" tweets that the phrase became a leading entry on Twitter's trend list. That led to a second, blunter McTweet on Sunday. "That Seriously McDonald's picture is a hoax." The latest pushback effort seems to have helped keep the photo from spreading too much further, but there's no telling how many people out there still think the photo is for real. This is hardly the only recent barrage of negative publicity for the burger behemoth, some of it more justified. McDonald's CEO Jim Skinner recently was forced to defend the company's renewed use of Ronald McDonald mascot to appeal to the children, after critics said the restaurant's fat-laden burgers and fries endangered children's health. It's not clear who created the hoax image. It appears to have first showed up on the popular 4chan message board, and it was posted last year on an anti-McDonald's blog. But there's no doubt it's fake. As some Twitter users have pointed out, the toll-free number given at the bottom of the sign is actually the number for ... Kentucky Fried Chicken. End of the article.
That is interesting.
And they can never find out who posts these random things. They can find out so much more, but it's posted in McDonald's, and they have cameras, and they don't know who posted it.
It's like that guy that went in Walmart and said all the black people leave the store now.
Right. Right. But then they had to put a KFC number, like, that isn't just a kick on the ground. I don't know. Like, goodness.
Detailed. Racist man and racist woman are very detailed in their practice of white supremacy.
Right.
People put that photo on.
All right, go ahead, Gus.
Oh, no, I was just going to say the photo is on my Facebook page. People posted it. That's
Oh, wow. Yeah, it looks official to me. Like it has the little, hair and all that. I mean, any type of graphic artist or anything could do that. So, mysterious poster.
Part of me, I was even thinking, as you were reading the report, like, me, and I could just be crazy. I'm suffering from mental illness too, but I was thinking maybe that was a counter-racist effort to get black people, focused on racism as a problem and, to just hit them in the face with something like that. But yeah, that's, I suspect that's probably not what it was.
Right. I mean, it could be, but our people will still be lined up at McDonald's eating the fat lady burgers.
Yeah, that would have been interesting now if that was for real, like, with black people, would we, say, hey, all right, that's it, not going to eat McDonald's? Would we be willing to focus at least on that one thing? This is blatant racism. We're not going to eat at McDonald's. Do you think the black people that in your family do you think they would support that if that was real? Do you think they would say, okay, I'm signed up, not going to eat at McDonald's anymore?
Honestly, no. I think they would still eat McDonald's. I mean, sad to admit, but yeah.
Dang.
A lot of people in my family are still more confused now. Anytime I think I've shared this with you before. Anytime I tried to share anything as far as being codified or anything with them, they're like, "We don't want to hear that black stuff." So that's the response I get from my own family members. I mean, mom, dad, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, anybody.
Black stuff. I mean, that's double, quadruple whammy. Like, wow.
Right. Right.
Woo. Is that true? I mean, the other people that have their line open, I mean, if this was real, if this was serious, do you think your family members, would they sign up? No, not going to eat at McDonald's anymore. That's blatantly racist. Swearing off McDonald's. Do you think your family members and friends, the black people that are on the line, the black people that do you think they would, cut the McDonald's?
My family would still go to McDonald's. Would still go. They're so conditioned. It would probably take something worse, and I wouldn't know what would be worse, but yeah, they would still go.
I'd say probably 75% of the people I know would still go. Maybe 25% wouldn't.
That is sad. My God. That's not, I don't even eat at McDonald's now. Like, that's not even, like, you don't even really need that as a reason to not eat at McDonald's. But, wow. That's, white people have done a good job. I'm sorry?
I was just saying, especially if they like McDonald's. They wouldn't.
Ebony News Channel, you had a hand up. Ebony News Channel.
Oh yes, I was just gonna say that if ad was real, that would mean the $1 or $1.50 fee would be enacted. Now, I'm wondering, would black people really be willing not only to go to McDonald's if that was true, but to know that you have to pay an extra fee because you're a black person to compensate for some robberies? With that, I don't know how many black people would do it, even of the more confused. Because even to know that you're specifically being singled out to have to pay an extra fee to get the food because you're black, that might help snap some black people out of it. If they didn't enact the $1.50 rule and somebody found out that actually was an official thing that was put up in a McDonald's, unfortunately, I think most of us are so lacking in dignity that we wouldn't seriously consider not going. Because I saw the ad, and I said, let me call that number and see if it's real. Because I remember the Bib commercial and the McDonald's ad in Europe where they were promoting teen homosexuality. And there's sometimes I'm pretty hungry, and I have that memory still of those fries. And I think about going through the drive-thru, and I think twice about it because of that. But unfortunately, I just run into too many black people that seem to be so lacking in dignity. If it wasn't for the fee, if they just knew that that was put up at a McDonald's, they probably would still find excuses for that. And, oh, that was just at that one McDonald's, that was one person. That's not McDonald's policy everywhere around. And they probably would still go and buy.
You know, this reminds me of, actually in Chicago, I can't speak for any other city, a friend of mine, he started suspecting that they did charge more at the McDonald's in the black neighborhoods. And I think he was going to investigate it, but I don't remember if he did it. But he went to a McDonald's in the white area, and he went to one in the black area. In the black area, they charge more, not for everything, but for certain items, they did charge more. Not significantly more, but maybe like 50 cents more or something like that.
Do you know if he found out if the one in the black area was a franchise or somewhat different than the other chains?
He never got back to me on it, so I don't know. And is that possible, though, that because it's a different franchise that they could have a different price? Because I thought they had to have the same price. But maybe not.
I can't say for sure. Mm-hmm. It could be possible. I just know when let's say if I go to a regular Starbucks, and it's just a regular corporation-owned Starbucks, mm-hmm. The prices are set in a certain way, but if I go to what appears to be a Starbucks in a bookstore, mm-hmm. It's a different company. Okay. And so the prices may be a little lower, but they serve everything Starbucks serves. That's the only thing I could think of. I mean, other than, like, how would you get away with blatantly discriminating and overcharging black people in a McDonald's if it's the same McDonald's everywhere, in their neighborhood?
Yeah, I think that's what I think about that.
Unless there was some county tax or something built in, which where I moved to, I went to a particular craft store and noticed on my receipt there's a county tax. And I don't remember in my whole life ever paying a county tax on top of sales tax. So, I mean, those are questions I would ask. But, I mean, man, how would you get away with blatantly charging more these days and still be in the same corporation?
How do they get away with anything?
No, that's an interesting point because I know, like, at a local grocery store here in Hartford, the grocery store, you have to pay 50 cents for the plastic bag, where if you go to a surrounding town, you don't have to pay 50 cents for, the plastic bag for your groceries. And, so if you don't go grocery shopping other places, you may not know that, you may think that, well, every grocery store you have to pay the extra 50 cents just for the plastic bag, Some people who do take notice, they'll just probably go shop at a different store outside of the town that they live. But if people don't have the transportation, they'll just, pay the additional tax for the plastic bag, because they're not going to, go out of their way, or they can't go out of their way. So I think if it happened like at a local McDonald's and they had to pay and they still were addicted to the food, they may pay, at $1.
It's like we're numb to being mistreated. I don't know what it would take to change that, but we're pretty numb to being mistreated. I think we just expect it, and it doesn't faze us anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can I be heard?
Yes,
ma'am. I was going to say, thank you, I'm sorry. I can even hear some black people justifying it, saying, if black people didn't steal and rob stuff, then they wouldn't be asking to pay nothing. And then they would use the N-word, talking about N-words just can't act right, and I can't stand N-words. I can guarantee you there'd be some black people saying just that, unfortunately, in our intense victimization.
Guaranteed. And white people would make sure to get some of them on TV. White people would make sure at least one or two of them got on television.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard those kind of comments many times. When something happens, they blame the black people for being mistreated.
And I think part of that mental illness, we're so quick to believe the word of our enemies and to believe the worst about ourselves, but when someone points out the obvious about what white people do and have done, we're quick to jump to their defense. So it is definitely like Stockholm Syndrome.
We're going to go 5 more minutes. We will be back tomorrow. Another suggestion. I told folks, make suggestions. We'll be on every day for the month. That news clip of Dr. Anthony Yoon. Thank you, listener. Emailed me his contact information just minutes ago. Thank you. I appreciate the assistance helping out a black victim of white supremacy. I appreciate it. But his what he was sharing about the white woman who was calling people Gomer, I was thinking of the program this Friday. Those white women on the job. I think what I say, if you want an example of lawlessness on the job, watch white women. She reminded me, her conduct. I mean, I don't know. We can save this for Friday, but just from what I've seen, they operate with total impunity in the workplace. White women, I'm talking about specifically, like total impunity. We'll see, what other folks have to say and how to try to counter that this Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to share? We'll go on another 5. Tomorrow's program, sorry. The program tomorrow, I forgot. Mr. Kamara. Double check to make sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he, black male. He has a lot of information on education. He works with black children, informs them about white supremacy. He said he listened to the program. He knew my voice. I didn't even give my name out. Anyway, he'll be on the program tomorrow. This is a suggestion from a listener. He has a great website. I can give you the information now. SamorySpeaks.wordpress.com. SamorySpeaks.wordpress.com. That's his blog. You can get more information. His videos are there. Black male, very informed, a lot less confused about white supremacy. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Same showtime as today, tomorrow, and that would be Wednesday, June 15th. Context of White Supremacy. 5 minutes. Feel free.
Yes, I did have a suggestion of a guest that you might be interested in. I don't know if you heard of this author, Daniela McGuire. She just wrote a book called At the End of the Dark Street, and it deals with interracial rape prior to the Montgomery bus boycott, and basically she's reinterpreting the history of the Civil Rights era, pre-1955, and Rosa Parks, and her argument is that the catalyst of the bus boycott was the fact that you had a number of interracial rapes of black women by white men in places like Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, all over the country, of course, Florida, and that there was a number of famous cases, one in particular, Reese Taylor, who was raped by, I believe, 5 or 6 white men, and she never got justice for the crime that was committed on her, and they're still waiting for the city to give her an official apology. So I thought she might be a good guest to talk about her work.
I will see if I can get her information. I wrote down her name and Daniela McGuire, is that it?
Yeah.
Daniela McGuire. I got her name. I will see if I can get contact information. I hadn't heard of her or her book, but that would be interesting. And it would be even especially interesting because white men raping black females is not really new. Like, they've been doing that, from day one of white supremacy. So that would be interesting as to why that happening then, sparked black people to action. Why not, anytime before that? That would be interesting. I'll see if we can get her on the program.
Okay.
Still had about 2 minutes left, unless everybody is good. There are a lot of people. Oh, somebody did press. Person, Texas. Your line is open.
Hey, Gus, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was. This is Khalil. I hadn't called in a while. I got another Khalil, but did you ever get in touch again with Calvin Thomas? He actually asked me about. He wrote another book.
I got it. I called him last Friday about being a guest on the program, and he told me about the new book. He mailed me a copy. Yeah, he'll probably be on the program next week.
Outstanding. And I'm looking forward to the show tomorrow. Brothers, I happen to have met the brother and like what he's doing in terms of childhood education. He's on the likes of Dr. Baruti in terms of having his own school. Should be a great show. I'm looking forward to that one.
He's a listener. I don't even know what else to say about that. He's a listener.
He is, and that's the. You got a lot of people listening. I thought it was awesome when I saw his name, as a guest, and man, I was like, he's not a guy I talk to every day, but I've had the luxury of talking to him and meeting him and sharing with him, and it's just. He's excited about it. Now, I won't say too much about that, but just the fact that I think he considers it an honor to be on the show. And he'll probably tell you that himself, so I won't speak for him.
I'm looking forward to it. I'll be doing my homework. See, the caller from D.C., your line is open as well.
Hi, guys. I was just basically going to say something quick about recapping what C.C. Blackman was saying about how to build. Well, he said a lot. It was just a wealth of information about how to build a black nation. And I guess, like, tomorrow's work, homework, after work, is to basically start to do that and not give lip service to how to build a black nation. Like, in my present situation, I've opened my home to a relative in need. And in Mr. Fuller's book, you say, you give the help, the most help to the person that needs the help. So in building a black nation, you have to open your home to people who need help, people who are trying to get back on their feet or save money so they can buy, a bigger house because they're expecting a baby or family. So as a community, we have to keep thinking, not a community, as a group, as a collective group, not community. As a collective group, we probably need to actively build a black nation, not just give lip service to it. And that's all.
All righty. We will be back tomorrow. Looking forward to it, Mr. Kamara. I'll be doing my homework on DC's assignment, as well as my assignment in preparing for the broadcast. But again, you can visit his blog, samori.wordpress.com, SAMOR speaks.wordpress.com. Same program time tomorrow, Wednesday, June 15th. It'll be 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. Looking forward to it. Should be constructive information. With that, we are signing out. Replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. Thank you.